Any mic on?
Yes. You probably should turn your mic on all the time, Dave, because it takes a long time for it to warm up. Passive aggressive. Yes.
Yeah, you can't have.
You have to have it turned off. You have to have your mic turned off.
Nobody in here should really have it.
Well,
Otherwise,
I wanted to put an earphone in, so I knew when people couldn't hear.
Okay.
That's so frustrating.
So if you have Zoom and you put it where you're muted,
I did, and
turn down your volume
And no volume.
and no volume,
Unless it's in your ear.
because I have mine on right now.
It's really the volume.
Right. All right. Welcome, everybody, tonight. We hope that Paul will join us any moment by Zoom, so we will go ahead and start. We're having our Woodland Hills budget retreat, and we're going to talk about our budget and pinch points and priorities tonight. So Jody has brought you each a copy of the budget that Chris has printed out for us. And I think, is Chris on with us at this point, Jody? He was earlier. Hi, Chris, welcome. Yeah, this is a draft, and mostly what I want you to see is the budget I'm proposing and where we need to decide priorities on what we want to do. So basically, we took the numbers that were requested. So if you look at the columns, 2018, fiscal year 2019 and 2020 are basically there just if we need to look at them for reference. The 2021 actual column is what we've spent so far this year. 2021 is what we budgeted for this fiscal year. And then the far right column is my proposed budget for 2022 at this point. So, and we put in quite a few notes so that, for instance, we came up with this property tax number of $770,000. Our collection for this year will actually be about 735. Well, it is at this point. If we assume that we would build 10 new homes and do a property tax, whatever we'd have to do to adjust our property tax to affect a actual 3% increase in real dollars. So until we kind of see what the tax rates are going to be, we can't really know what that adjustment would be. But I think that what we have, I believe the message that we've gotten kind of loud and clear from our citizens is that they prefer very small incremental increases every year than for us to not increase, and then say, now we need money this year and it's going to be large. That seems to get people way more upset than if we decide that we're just going to do little incremental increases. And so I would suggest 2 or 3% every year would be, I mean, this is an interesting issue because personally, I would never do it this way. I would do no increase until you need one and then a big one. If that's what you need, increase it what you need when you need it. But the feedback I have gotten is overwhelmingly the other direction. And this isn't a moral issue. I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve our citizens. And if they prefer small little incremental increases every year, then that's probably what we should do. So that's...
Well, so I think it's important that we realize that what you just said is, in my opinion, isn't the best way of phrasing it.
Okay.
Because it's not a 2 or 3% increase.
Right.
It's really the only way that the city can recapture the increased property tax from these new homes. In other words, again, I go back to that model that I talked about last year. So when we ask the county, we ask for a fixed amount of dollars.
Right.
So if we do nothing this year, nothing, then what's going to end up happening is that the property tax rate, which is a percentage of the value of the homes, is going to go down. But we will not get any more real dollars, none. So real dollar wise, we're stuck, we're pegged, unless we do a small increase. And then that allows us to capture the value of these new homes that are being built. Otherwise, we can't capture it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I'm not sure that's true. Chris? We can get him on. I believe that the county figures, we tell them how many dollars we need, and they figure it on what we had, plus they also figure the new homes in.
Kind of. So
Right.
we get about a 1 or 2 year benefit from the new homes, but then it's gone.
Right, okay,
So I just prefer to think of it as gone,
right, okay,
not even there.
okay,
So yes, we get a few extra dollars for the new homes initially,
right,
but after that it goes away. And again, you just have to think of it as we're asking the county for a fixed amount of
right.
dollars.
And that's what we need, that, yes, and that fixed amount of dollars needs to slightly increase every year to keep up.
To keep
So,
up with
yes.
inflation and the cost of,
Right. So my
bigger
suggestion is
city.
that we generally go with 2 to 3%. And this year we're gonna try 3 because last year we slashed everything.
So I'm sorry to beat this a little bit, but
It's okay.
is 2 or 3% going to take care of inflation and the increase from the property tax that David's talking about of the new construction? Because inflation is going to be, just standard inflation is going to be 2 to 3%.
Right.
And so does that work, Dave? I don't know.
well, we'll find out as we go through.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, probably not. And we could,
think,
But your point is valid.
yeah,
Mhm.
if our philosophy is that we want to keep up with the growth of the community, the new construction and inflation, is 2 or 3% enough?
and
And my question is, are we going to get 10 new homes? I mean, the increase in construction is so high now that I know that there are some people who are reconsidering and who have
Right.
bought their lot and have said, no more. I mean, a price of plywood now, I think,
Well,
used
keep
to
in
be under
mind-
$10 and now it's close to 50.
The 10
So-
new homes is based on construction that's happening now.
no, we figured we did about 25 homes each year for the last 2 years. So we
Yeah.
figured 10 for next year. It was a decently-
Conservative.
Yeah.
Because I know
Yeah,
there's
but
some
we're not
who
gonna,
have,
we're not, even if we get 10 new homes next year, we're not gonna capture any of that revenue really for a year.
So the 6 years ago, construction of a typical home was about $175, $150. Today, it's $250 a square foot.
the average median price for a house in the state of Utah is 589,000. That's a median house. We don't have very many median houses.
But that also includes land prices. So
No, well, that's just a.
that just the
home.
construct,
That's
yeah,
just
but
a
so
home.
I'm saying, but
That's just
the
a home.
construction prices
That's
that,
just a home price,
right.
not considered.
Okay.
Property.
so anyway, so we can adjust this if we think it's reasonable, but that's where I started trying to be very conservative. So then we'll just move down, line 3990 should be, kind of highlighted for you on this first page still. This is, we would be taking $266,000 out of our fund balance, which is basically our savings, to make this budget balance. And I will tell you, as we move through, I'll kind of justify why I think that's reasonable. But if we aren't willing to do that, that's the amount of money, or if we are not willing to do that full amount, that's the amount of money that we would have to either raise taxes more or make more cuts from that amount of
Can I
money.
ask Chris, what percentage of that fund balance transfer is the percentage of our total fund balance?
50. Just a rough estimation with working with the accountants yesterday, it's about 50%.
50% of our fund balance?
And of our total budget, it's about what, 20, 25%?
Yeah, if you
No,
No.
15%, right,
Yeah.
Chris?
look at the bottom line here.
So we can keep,
It's-
now we
it's
can
two-
keep 35% of our total budget in the
Well,
fund balance. So if this is 50%, that.
this is reducing it because it's,
Mhm.
because basically our budget, if I understand this right, is the mayor's proposal is basically 1.75 million, and we're taking 270,000 out of that, so that's going to be about 15%.
Yeah, but we're taking about 260 out of about $520,000 in our
Yeah,
fund
but-
balance now.
But I'm saying
Right.
if we try to make it up with taxes,
Right.
it's a huge. It's a
Yeah, we
huge
can't,
increase.
raise taxes enough to cover that. That is for sure. First of all, I don't think we can legally, but second of all, it's not the right thing to do. Okay. Scooting over to page 2, the next, so here's one place that we have a big pinch. Line 4141.311 is our attorney fees. And we figured this based on what is costing us right now.
So we're going with about $12,000 a month.
About 11.
11 to 12,000 a month for attorney fees. We no longer have the use of the league attorney, which was never a litigation attorney to begin with.
Right.
It was more of just a
Right.
ongoing. The league is planning on having an attorney that would be more advisory for day-to-day business, that they're trying to determine, probably next week, it's on the agenda to determine if those cities that utilize that would then just pay a little extra.
Right.
That hasn't been determined at this point, but I think it would be something we'd want to do for day-to-day things that cost would be spread among all the cities in the state and not just one-on-one like we need to do for a litigation attorney, but.
Right. Right. So at this point, if we still have a neighbor dispute going on in our city between two neighbors and one of them still trying to pull us off our neutral position, we've got big attorney fees piling up, and we're not really sure how to get out of that because we're unwilling to move out of a neutral position.
Well, we even attempt to, we then create just the same problem on the other side.
Exactly.
So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
So, but this, I mean, when you look at $266,000 having to come out of the fund balance, if you can reduce that amount by $100,000,
Yep.
Well, but I think from a budget standpoint, I mean, anyway, you'd be stupid to not have that in the budget
I agree.
because. at
But I
least
think
right-
our citizens need to realize that this is coming from one neighbor dispute.
Yeah, no, I.
And I mean,
understand
because this is all coming out of their pockets. And so, yes, I agree. We have to budget that. But at this point,
The other benefit is if things can be resolved between these two, then
this money goes back into the fund balance.
that's a line item that you don't
Exactly.
have to spend on that.
Yep.
That would be very nice.
So, let's see. So if you turn over to page 3, here's a place that we could potentially save some money. Sorry. Oh, and I just answered it. Sorry, Mike, can't talk to you. That's my son. Okay, fire training. We generally spend about $8,000. Well, they've spent more. Craig requested $8,000 this year. He also had $8,000 last year. He was really hoping to take 4 of the 8 that didn't get spent last year and roll it into this year so he could have 12 this year. And I think that's a reasonable
What is the difference in the
request.
training from the last few years where it's been?
Well,
closer
last
to
year it was
8?
almost none because of COVID.
Right, I meant, but previous
So Craig, well,
years.
Well, if
So what we have an opportunity to do is a joint training center with Spanish, work, Salem, Mapleton.
hold on one sec. Can anybody watching hear Craig?
No,
Sorry. We'll start again.
I just know what he's talking about, but it's very hard to hear him.
That better?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, there should be two more mics.
So what we're looking at is a possible joint training center with Spanish Fork, Salem, Mapleton, and if we can get Elkridge involved. And it'll be at the Spanish Fork Fairgrounds. It gives us some live fire training, but it's a good way to get our groups together and train together and keep our members involved and hopefully get some new members on the department, especially training live fire.
So if I look at this chart, it shows that actuals for 2021 are $29.
Right.
Yeah, because we didn't do winter fire school.
And we have a budget of 8,000. So
So
I think there's
he was
plenty
really,
of money. I think what I'm saying, I think there's plenty of money to do 12,000 this year. Based upon
right.
the
Yeah.
rollovers that we
And
can
that's
do.
what she's thinking of rolling over.
Right.
And yeah, it'd be a good opportunity. Now, it's not set in stone yet, but Spanish Fork they're giving the land, they're installing the hydrant, and they're putting in the concrete pad for the training.
Oh, wow.
So it just gives us a great opportunity to work with them.
So will that be valid in the future also because they're putting in the pad and that kind of thing? Or they plan on doing this multiple
Ongoing?
years or just? in the
Yeah,
future?
what we're looking at is a 3-year, try to do it in 3 years. We're just going to do it in stages as we can do it.
Okay.
We'll be building them out of containers. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Craig.
Okay, the next spot is page 4. And so we've got dot 740, the streets capital outlay equipment. This included.
Before you leave page
Yes,
3,
I'm sorry.
Craig, do you see sufficient to order that new truck for delivery in 2022 or 3, whenever? I don't see.
That'll come on page 5.
It's in
Yeah, it's
capital.
coming later.
It's in
It's coming
capital
later.
outlay.
Okay.
Thanks, Doral, for watching out for me. Okay, so on page 4, dot 740, the streets capital outlay. Originally, Corbett requested, our public works requested $168,000. That includes getting another truck. Remind me what it is. What truck is that, Corbett? You remember? Yeah, it is. But so we took 150 out because that was to put toward buying another truck.
No, that's for the expansion of the building.
Oh, expansion of the building. Sorry. Yes, that's for, yes, expanding the building. And I feel like it would be better for us to do that through debt financing, through a bond rather than paying for it up front, because money right now is super cheap.
It is super cheap, but we also have,
Other bonds.
we have other bonds. So our credit
Yes.
line is shrinking dramatically.
Yes, it is. However, that would, anyway, if we did it that way, it ends up being $11,000 a year from our roads fund, $11,000 a year from our snow removal fund, and
Our
11,000.
roads fund is gone.
Well, we're talking about for this
I
budget.
understand, but we need to make sure that we all understand. We already bonded with the revenue from the B&C roads fund.
Right.
Road fund is gone.
No, we're not talking about bonding.
Well, but we have to make payments.
Right.
And
Right.
so
We put the payment in this budget. That $11,000 payment, we've accounted for that in this budget
so part of the 20.
And where's that money coming from?
from our general fund.
No, I get that. What I'm saying is, if I understand what you said correctly, you said we removed the 150,000 and instead we said, okay, we're going to do that with debt financing.
Mhm.
What revenue stream are we going to use for that debt financing?
For the new debt.
For the new debt that you're saying we need
To
take
secure
on?
it or to pay, or real dollars to pay
secure
it? Chris, what would we do?
That'd go to Zion's Bank to have them tell us which funding stream. With the increase in property taxes with the new homes and some of the other revenues that are coming in, they would just have to see which one they would. Well, actually, the building would, it would be in and of itself
Yes, because it's a building,
an asset.
an asset as opposed to a road, which
So
is
the roads are not an asset because they can't come take the roads away, but they could do in the building.
Okay, so, and that's fine. I just want, but I want to make sure that it's really clear with everybody. We've already tied up the revenue stream of the B and C road.
right.
funds.
And we're not talking about
The
using.
only revenue stream that we had left as of last year, because we didn't do it, was our sales tax.
Right,
But that was pretty minimal.
right. But this is, so instead of trying to set aside, I mean, maybe we decide we can't afford the building. Also, but the downside of that is that we've got a lot of equipment that we've sunk a lot of money into that sits out in the elements.
I also think that employee efficiency would skyrocket by having more room and not having to juggle equipment around to be able to do various projects. And so I think if we really looked at that hard, in efficiencies, we might be able to cover the cost of that expansion.
Well, we also need to remember that we have to be SWIFT compliant too with our equipment being stored inside. We would definitely save money on violation fees.
So anyway, so my proposal is basically, it looks like we've slashed what was requested, but we've really just,
We're moving it to a different color of money.
right. We've shifted things around, because I believe that building is a worthwhile investment. And I also believe that our public works people, especially Corbett, have thought very creatively on how to do it how to get the biggest bang for our buck on this, trying to expand this building a little as opposed to building another facility or.
I think it's a no-brainer to add on to this building.
So, and then, I mean, so then instead of putting $150,000 out of the general fund in this line, it would be 11 from here, 11 from snow removal, and 11 from our water.
And that would be.
Per year.
For how long?
Probably, I think 20 years is what I think Chris told me.
Yeah.
Okay, the next line, .451, this is for us to maintain the roads.
Sorry, before we.
Yes.
From the 11, where was the 11 being shown in the budget?
So, well, it's right here in this .740, so it's $18,000 to make payments on the two trucks we have now,
Okay.
and then 11.
The 11 a year though is
So
split
it's-
between the
So in
three.
other words,
So
it's,
11 from this
It's
fund,
mushed together,
11
not
from the
separated.
okay, it's
snow
the
removal.
29,000.
No, it's on
Got
here,
it.
it says split between roads, water and roads, water and snow removal.
Right,
I
it's
think-
11 from each.
Yes,
Oh, it's 11 from
yeah.
each. Okay.
The note's just not clear.
But if you take the 18,000 from this year's budget, add 11,000, then that gives you the 29,000 on the proposed budget. So that's fine.
Okay, then, so moving down to, this is Corbett set up a 10-year rotating cycle for us to,
Maintain the roads.
yes, but what is it? It's a micro.
Just lost Wendy's mic, Chris says. So did you accidentally push it?
No, but the red light.
I think it's off.
The battery
battery.
went dead already.
Battery's dead.
No, you need yours.
Just swap out the battery.
Is this one working?
Yep, that's great.
Okay, sorry. All right.
Laurel?
So this is, so Corbett's divided this city into 10 sections, and it's about 1.5 miles a year that would be basically road maintenance that would be doing it's not crack sealing, it's the,
Microsurfacing.
thank you, microsurfacing.
And which line is that? I'm sorry.
That is line .451.
So this 10-year rotating cycle, so what you're saying is that you would divide the whole entire town, so every 10 years, they would be getting that road would be getting
Yes.
resurfaced.
The industry recommends every 5 years, but double that. 10 years is better than nothing.
Yeah.
It's better than what we've been doing.
Yeah, absolutely better.
And so that's what it would cost us. That's what his estimate that it would cost us per year to do this. So that's somewhere we could save money if we have to in our budget, but it's at what cost? You know, in the future.
Now, question, could that be done with the bond money? For the road bond money?
Do we have more? I thought we spent it all. Okay.
Not even close.
No,
Oh, okay.
no, we have.
We're gonna.
I would
Oh,
think,
I understand that we're gonna, but
Right.
I'm just saying, we haven't even come close. Now, and then we've also talked about with both Broad Hollow and Spring, that we would use water
Yes, if we can qualify.
and oak.
Yep, for that.
Water money, which we're still kind of in, but, so that takes me back to that 171,600. Could that come out of the road bond money that we currently have not spent? And why not?
So the water project, we're asking for another $410,000. And in that 410, in that 410, we felt pretty comfortable that we could do oak, only oak, not the cul-de-sacs, Broad Hollow and East Spring, and then patch the trench on everything else. When you look at the cul-de-sacs are destroyed. I mean, Doral, your cul-de-sac is terrible. And all we're planning to do is patch the trench. I don't think the residents are going to put up with that. And so in our meeting Wednesday, we started talking about what it would take to do everything else, to grind and redo, and basically what we're planning to do on Oak, Spring, and Broad Hollow. And so our thought was, if we take, instead of spending the money on the trench patching, take the money that we would have spent on Spring and Broad Hollow and spend it on, add it to the trench patching and redo the cul-de-sacs like we're talking about redoing Oak and Spring and Broad Hollow. And then take the bond money, the road bond money that we haven't yet spent, and still do Spring and Broad Hollow. The issue that we run into is that we can't split up and combine projects. It's the road project, the road fund, or it's the water project. And so the water project needs to stay independent from any other project, including road. So if we take, the bad thing about it is that if we spend any money on trenching, the trenching is in the estimates, the trenching was $3.50 a square foot. In the estimates, a total rebuild is $2.25 a square foot. And so to spend that money on just patch the trench and still have a crappy road just doesn't make sense. And the residents that I've talked to on the cul-de-sacs on the west side of town, they're anticipating the roads being rebuilt. And we always look at the damage done by construction should be fixed by construction. And there's not enough money in it to do that. And so we just got numbers today for the cul-de-sacs, the surface area for the cul-de-sacs. We're still trying to put that together, but if there's enough money, if we take the road money or the water money that we were going to spend on Spring and Broad Hollow and do a total rebuild on the whole west side of town, the cul-de-sacs, Oak Ridge Circle, would still only be patching Willow Reed Road, but Willow Reed Road is in better condition except for the parts that fell apart and for the trench. And then use that road bond money to do what we were going to do with water money on Spring and Broad Hollow. So.
Did you
Does
get
that
that
make
shell
sense?
game?
Yeah,
I think I've got it.
It makes sense, and that's actually a really good way of putting it. It is a shell game,
Right.
but it's an important shell game
Mhm.
as far as keeping the funds separate and making sure that we handle the money.
Well,
I think it's a very
the biggest-
creative.
The biggest thing that we're
Mhm.
fighting is we can't basically open up the water project. The water project is what it is. Now, Division of Drinking Water doesn't care if we don't spend it on Spring and we spend more on the cul-de-sacs on the west side of town.
As long as we spend it on the water.
As long as it stays with the water project. And then the road fund, the road money, the road bond, that has to be a total separate bid. So that has to go out to bid all over again. We're hoping to have those numbers put together to present something to the council so that we can take advantage of the quantity of scale and tag on to the projects that we're doing right now. But then you do a road project over here and you pay Geneva out of general fund or out of the road bond. And then you do a road project over here and you pay Geneva out of the water bond. Geneva doesn't, I mean, whoever gets it.
Right.
Geneva.
They don't care where they get their money from as long as they get their money.
Right.
Division of Drinking Water cares that you don't mix the two.
Right.
And it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend a higher dollar amount per square foot on the cul-de-sacs as opposed to taking the money from over here and do it right over here. I mean, what I'm considering right
Right.
over here, and then use other money to do what we would have done over here. It's just that we don't want to take this money away from over here if everybody doesn't agree, because everybody's already counting on rebuilding Spring and Broad Hollow. So as long as that still happens, everybody's happy.
Right.
I think that last part is very important. I think that talking about all the different funds overloads the average citizen's mind. And so, you know, we're gonna do what we can do that's legally ethical and moral and get all of it done the best we can. Use the money the best we can.
So, but meanwhile, this 171.6
Mhm.
is for
And that
even
would be ongoing
separately.
every single year.
This would be-
171 every year.
Well, or more depending on what costs actually are.
And that
are.
would just help us to get this 10-year cycle.
Mhm. That would put us in a 10-year cycle of maintaining our roads.
Technically, over time, the quantity that you do is going to go down as prices go up. If we don't increase that money.
Right.
Right. you'll-
That money will have to increase to what it really costs to do a mile and a half every year.
Or it'll end up
basically.
being an 11-year cycle or a 12-year cycle instead of a 10-year cycle.
So that's a mile and a half every year,
Basically,
Whatever it is,
basically.
yeah.
Okay.
And does that get
That's
us,
$171,000 worth.
and a mile and a half, are we paying a premium because it's a small amount?
More so than you would if you doubled it, sure.
well, and so, I mean, I think the smart thing would be to do it right at the switch of the budget year so that you can do
True.
twice as much every 2
Okay.
years, you
Yeah,
know, and with 2 budget cycles.
Yeah, because I was where I was
So
going.
some
is
would come out of
instead of
June,
it-
some out of July.
Budget it for every year, but only perform the work every 2 years.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, but there's the other concept called flow of money.
Right,
And just because the budget cycle has switched doesn't mean we have the money in the bank to do it.
right. Right.
The budget cycle doesn't help us that much.
But the concept is that we need to set aside 171.60 this year
Every
and
year.
probably every year, but that number may fluctuate. But
Right.
how frequently we do the road seal, we may want to wait and accumulate 1 year's and then use the second year's so that we can get a better economy instead of getting
That we
Right.
can do.
three,
Yes.
3 miles, maybe we can get 3 and a
Yes.
quarter, 3.5. I don't know.
Right.
Right. Well, and
Right.
that's not a typical funding stream either. You realize that?
That's pure budget, pure budget. That's
No, that's-
coming out of our general fund.
Well, that's Class C road funds.
Okay.
Yeah,
But we've already committed our road C funds, right?
Yeah, we've already committed all those.
Right.
They're part of the bond.
And they'll go, and how long is that bond, remind me?
30 years.
No.
I think it was a 5-year.
Yeah, I was
Oh, that's
thinking
right.
5 year,
5 years,
Mhm.
you're right.
5 years.
5 years.
and where's that in this budget, Chris?
It's the one that says 580,000 line 4410.448.
Oh, yeah, see up there.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 16 and a quarter.
So,
And the other thing to consider is that as more development comes, we have more roads to add to that 16 miles.
Yeah, but if.
not a lot.
I don't know how the private roads plays into it.
So
And so,
But it's the public roads that's down in Four Seasons we've got to worry about.
yeah, but I mean, you look at his
They're new.
you look at his next phase and he's only doing cul-de-sacs off of Summit Creek
Yeah,
Drive.
they're just little bits.
And so you
bits.
get 4 houses, but you only get 150 feet of
But the
road.
private roads, we don't pay for.
Just
Correct.
the main,
But we don't get credit for them either.
Yeah, we don't
know-
get
I
Class
know
C
how that
road
works.
funds.
Okay.
all roads are being covered.
Right.
Oh, so that's a good point to
Just
remember.
kidding. Just
Right.
kidding.
What's the wash then on that? What's the wash on what we lose on road C funds versus what we
Pay for
pay
maintenance.
for maintenance? I mean, it's not gonna be 100%, but it's gonna be enough that we want.
I don't think you do that. I
And how-
don't think you do that deal as
It's,
part of a
And just
financial
for-
decision.
Okay,
Just for clarification, then, on roads that may be considered private, that we don't have to allocate funds for maintenance, how do we guarantee that they're keeping them up so that they don't just go all crazy and then all of a sudden they say, well, we can't do it, so we're handing them over to you. and
but
then
No,
we
no,
don't,
no.
we don't have to take them.
We don't
We
accept.
do not
We
take
don't
them.
accept.
We
Okay.
do not accept.
And before he retired, that's one of the things David Church explained is we have no obligation to take them, and there are plenty of cities who have said, nope, we're not taking it.
So they can just keep deteriorating and the
They-
citizens who live on that road.
That own that road, it's their problem.
By law, they have to have money set aside to do the maintenance.
Okay, and we never have to check it though, is what I'm saying. We don't have.
It's
any-
not on us, it's their private.
Well, do we have any inside or oversight responsibility for proper maintenance of those private roads?
Mm-mm.
I don't know.
That's what I
Or
was
if you-
just- that kind of
or
what
if
I
you
was asking.
dig it
I
up
was
for a
asking
new,
a different way.
for a new water line or something.
Or to repair.
Again, the water, I would imagine the water lines would be private.
I
No,
don't
no,
think
we'd
so.
have an easement.
No,
Yeah, we have an easement.
yeah, the water is ours. We're responsible for the water.
Yeah, we'd have an
So
easement.
if we
for
tear it
that
up,
and
we
the
fix
sewer.
it.
And what about if the
Probably.
road was in disrepair? What would that do for our emergency services? I mean, there's a lot of
Yep.
dominoes.
We love wildland driving,
Okay,
That's when you put in-
four-wheel
so
drive.
let's move on. The next place that we could,
That's
so
not the right-
on this line, moving down a little bit down the page,
You see
dot
Paul,
740,
Paul joined us.
snow plowing. So this line shows the $11,000, oh no, the $18,000 payment on the trucks that coming from snowplow, and then a $15,000 for a pit and auger system put on these trucks. This is
Oh.
one of those,
The pit and auger system is for down at the salt shed.
oh, yes, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. I knew that. I was testing you. Good job, Corbett.
Can you explain what that is?
Yes, so
So-
I want Corbett to explain this because this is where one of those things that I think we can justify taking money out of fund balance to pay for something like this. So listen
So
to,
you drive by the Staker Parsons plant on the north end of Spanish Fork, and they've got those big silos. And then on the far north end, they've got this conveyor belt that's covered, but this conveyor belt that comes up out of a pit. So when they dump their aggregate, they drive over a grate and it just drops in out of a belly dump. What I want to do something similar down at the salt shed. Last year, I spent 42 hours stacking salt. Now, you don't have to stack salt. You can order it throughout the year, a load at a time. The risk you run into is running out because they're inundated and they can't get to you fast enough. But also, UDOT, when I was at Elk Ridge, UDOT had done a study. And if you buy your salt in the summertime when it's dry, and you're particular when you order it, and you try to not order it right after a rainstorm, typically, according to UDOT, your salt is 20% lighter because you pay by the pound or by the ton. And so if you're ordering your salt dry, you can get as much as 20% more salt for the same amount of money, or you pay 20% less for the same amount of salt.
So what does this have to do with the pit and auger?
So the auger system will let us drop the salt into a pit using belly dumps,
From the delivery
truck.
company?
huh?
From the delivery company?
Yeah, from a truck.
Supplier.
If we can drop it in, right now we have to use live bottom trailers, and live bottom trailers are a lot more expensive to haul salt per ton than a belly dump. A belly dump can haul more salt, and so they can haul it cheaper. So if you can stack it in the summertime, and you can stack it with augers, you don't have to pay the wages to stack the salt. you get 20% more salt for the same amount of money. If you do it in an auger and a pit kind of a system, you can save money on the delivery because now you've created more competition because more people can haul your salt instead of just live bottom traders. You get the salt in there before the winter starts, so you don't have to worry about it.
So is the pit inside the shed or
No.
outside?
The pit would be outside where a belly dump would just drive over the top of it. And then the auger would pick it up in the bottom of the pit and convey it up to the top of the salt shed.
And how do you keep the pit dry?
Cover it.
Well, and you probably don't worry about it during like.
I mean, you can
the
drive.
winter.
But you still gotta worry about in case you have an emergency delivery or something like that.
Yeah, but if you order your salt in the wintertime or in the summertime,
You don't
nothing's,
worry
you
about
don't ever have an emergency.
Where you consumed all the salt that you planned, that you bought ahead.
If you can stack it, if you have to stack it inside the salt shed, you got to save room for the tractor to drive around on top of the salt under the trusses. Average, I mean, over the last probably 10 years, we've used an average of about between 810 and 900 ton of salt. If I don't have to save space in the top of the salt shed for the tractor to be able to stack it, I figure I can get about 1,200 ton in there.
With those barriers set up?
Yeah.
Or are you gonna take those out?
No, I'd leave them there.
Okay.
Thank you.
And so, but Chris is pointing out to me that we have an error there. The 11, we need to add another $11,000 for that payment
Where's
on the
that?
building if we want to. The 18 and the 15 are 33, and then we need the 11 for the building. So that
that's
takes us up
really
to 44.
44.
Yes, which
So
Which line are we
33 goes to
looking at?
44.
change, so this same line, dot 740, you need to change it to 44,
Oh, from 29 to 44?
33,
33 to 44. It's in yellow.
4418 dot 740 on page
Two lines,
4.
two yellow lines down,
Okay.
30, 33.
And then that means you also need to go back to page 1. Change the fund balance appropriation to 277.
Two,
Instead of
It's getting-
266.
Yes,
getting higher.
yep.
Chris, it's supposed to go the other way.
277 even?
No, 277,
219.
219, yes. Okay, I'm just doing the math in my head, so hopefully I'm keeping up with it right. Okay, the next line down, we've got budgeted $20,000 for chipper day. Sorry, dot 450. The next line we're going to consider. I think that, so we've had grants in the past, those are going away. We're going to have to start funding it ourselves. One of the things that I think we could do is I would really like to take our garbage rates right now and even them out so that it is one rate for your first can and a second amount for your second can, whether it's a regular can or a recycle can. So that it's just
The same.
clear and easy. It will a little bit incentivize recycling, but we could probably capture quite a bit of this $20,000 by increasing those rates slightly and evening them out.
Because you think they'd order more cans? Or how would
No,
you?
right now it's, you get
Oh,
economy
get
of scales
a discount on
for
your
the second can.
Uh-huh.
And you want to,
Well, and you would do that still, but it would be more expensive for a non-recycle can than it is now. And and
Like instead of $10, it might be $12.
Right.
And then we would capture that extra and put it to this fund
To
for
Chipper Day, which
because everybody does use
and
it.
I think that would be a justifiable way to pay for Chipper Day because everybody, I mean, that's a huge benefit to everybody in the city.
Well, and, if they didn't have it chipped, they'd have to pay to haul it to the
Mhm.
transfer station.
Unless you,
So how much would can prices need to go up to capture the 20,000?
first can is 12.50 right now, right?
I believe so.
yes.
I'm pretty sure. And I don't know. I thought the second can was 8.50.
I think,
And
but
the
I think a recycle
It's like
can,
16.
so your first can is 12.50 and a recycled can 16.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to remember, we talked about this before, but we talked about just making like the first can 16 or 15, and then every additional can being like 12, something to that effect. And then that
That's
would,
gonna increase
it-
$3. And how many cans do we have?
I don't remember.
Do
Chris
you know
ran the
how many
numbers the
cans
other
we
day.
have?
And we can do these numbers, but what I'm saying is, right now, we're budgeting $20,000. We could recapture quite a bit of that, if not all of it, through a slight increase in our garbage fees, and even in the amount, which would be much easier for us to manage too, as far as just keeping track of the garbage.
And this chipper rate,
collection.
Craig, this is renting the chippers and then paying for the crew, or what does this 20,000 get us?
No, what the 20,000 does is it provides those crews to come in and chip it for us, the fire crews that are doing it now. But what we're trying to do this year is we're trying to put in for a grant, and it's a letter that of support that I send around for you guys. We're trying to put in a grant that this 20 could end up being 95 grand. It'd be a 1-year deal, but we could clean up a lot of areas. We could also offer, with this grant, we're allowed to offer residents that have bigger pieces of property, that if they want to pay some into it, this fund can go help pay for that. So that can keep generating income into that pot for chipper day.
So to do $20,000, if you increase the other can, or the cans by $3 a month, you'd need 556 cans to equal 20,000.
And we have
Close to that.
we have that.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
So, I mean, so the thing is, right now, we're budgeting $20,000 for this. I think we could recapture it other ways, and that would take $20,000 off our bottom line. Yeah, Greg's still working on that. But at this
would
point,
be hiring the crew to come in with their machines and doing it after our citizens have dragged it to the road. Those who can't drag it to the road, but still would like their lot cleared, they could pay then to have this crew come in and do their lot off, but they would have to pay extra.
If we were to get that grant, yes.
If we were to get that grant, that would be great.
It's a 1-year grant.
it would also benefit non-residents, I think, that
Right.
are willing
people
to.
who have vacant lots at this point.
And it gives us some leverage having that there, especially if we could turn that into that 95.
Mhm.
And even if we don't end up using this.
Well, we know that it's been beneficial, not only for all the years that we've been doing it, people expect it. They enjoy going out and cleaning up their yard and dragging it to the side. But after the fires, I think it was very clear to us when those federal firefighters came in and realized we didn't just say that we have our wildland interface ordinances, that we actually do something. And I think that meant something to them as they were putting themselves on the line, saving our city, that they recognized that our citizens had something in the game too, previous. So, yeah, and I think that that's one thing that we should make sure we continue.
Yes. And
Chief, do you feel like the bins that we rented for a time were worth it?
Yeah, the bids were well worth it. It comes down to that. And they're really staying focused on making sure I've got a spring chipper.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Okay,
I
just,
think if we stop it, it's going to be really.
that's right.
Oh, for sure. We can't lose the momentum on that,
Well, I think in the drought year, it's even more important
Yeah.
to have 2 of them.
for sure.
The fall ones are scary because of the piles.
Yeah.
Right,
People with chainsaws and things like that in the fall versus spring.
right.
That scares me.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
but if we don't do the clear, if the drought is going to be as bad as it's forecasted, we're going to have a lot of dead because of the drought, and so we need to clear it out in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see how our moisture holds this year in our oak. I mean, we're pretty fortunate. If you look at the
the snow line, we stay in the snow, so our moisture stays pretty high. And that's why our fire burned like it did.
Good.
Mhm.
So hopefully it will keep going up.
Thanks.
Okay,
More
then
snow plowing.
if you turn over to page 5, this is where we are
No yellow.
moving also, so some of what we're appropriating from the fund balance, we're actually moving to these basically little savings accounts. So we're not actually spending the savings yet, we're just reallocating it from one place so that it's not just in a general fund balance. Now we're putting
For capital projects.
$4,000 to EMS capital projects, 5,000 to snow removal.
Yeah, we're talking 15,000.
Yeah, it's not a huge amount, but part of that coming out of fund
Out of
balance.
the 277 out of fund balance is 15,000 for these capital.
Right, right. Well, is that, yeah,
capital
wait a
projects.
minute, it's more, because there's the 50. Yeah, flip back onto page 4.
Yeah,
There's 50 for fire also.
good.
So it's really 65. You could see that number
Okay,
down
that's
there.
what I thought. I was trying to figure out how that
Yeah.
adds up.
So,
And so by looking at this, what you've done is you've reduced what the employees have asked for by 337,000. And we have an underrun on our budget of $4,100.
well, I haven't reduced what they've asked for by 337. Because
Reallocating.
277 is coming out of fund balance.
And
So
isn't it
really, it's
Okay.
3369, about $70,000.
And is the money
reduction.
that was coming out of the public works for the building also out of that? It's
Mhm.
not coming out of the general fund, that would be,
Right, right. That's part of the
That
reduction.
would be bond money.
Right. So then, then you flip over to page 6, and this is just not really, this is showing the
There's all
capital
zeros.
projects that this is showing the stuff that we're doing and have done right now. This is nothing future. And then page 7,
I do
8,
have a question though, because we
Okay.
are in the process, I mean, nothing is set in stone, but for the additional watershed op projects that are coming along, we might want to consider having a capital project for potential mitigation efforts. Now, because there's going to be something that comes out of that. Corbett's working on it, and I'm going to the meetings on it. Ted Mickelson is already doing some of the design on that. We may or may not do it, but it should be noted that if we do, we might need to be building something up for the next 3 to 5 years so that we don't find ourselves needing a huge, big pot of money.
But I
I
thought that
also-
that particular project was going to be revenue neutral.
No,
And
not
cost
necessarily.
neutral.
Not necessarily. Just the design. The design is 100% paid for by the federal government.
so for what projects are you talking
This is
about?
the watershed ops project. Remember, we did, the NRCS project was divided in half between the EWP, Emergency Watershed Protection, and watershed ops. The second portion is the debris basin that would be over by the water tanks, to protect the water tanks.
Okay,
Right,
So-
Right.
that was the one that Corbett said was going to be expense neutral because of the money coming from dumping dirt and not having to transport it out.
Are we collecting money now?
If we could, part of the problem is that the property owners don't want to.
Okay,
So the basin we were talking about before would have mitigated 100% of the risk. But it would have required, the property owner above Dalton Sharon Wright to be willing to let us do something on his property.
okay, so given that, I'm not in favor of any more work that costs this city one more dime.
Well, and that's something we need to consider.
That's just the blunt
I mean,
reality for me.
Think about even though the GeoBrug fence was destroyed in the avalanche, it probably did slow it from coming down into the city. And so mitigation efforts do help protect our citizens. They also help property owners with their geohazard studies because it shows, and their insurance, because it shows that there is some protection. I don't think that we automatically throw out a few $1 million worth of project because we might have to spend 100,000. So what I'm suggesting is that we at least consider having a capital fund that if at that time we decide to do it, because we don't decide today, it's still 3 to 5 years out. When that time comes, at least we're not fretting and squeezing our turnip to try to figure out if we can or can't do it. We might not all be on the council at that time. Might be somebody new, but at least that gives them the option of saying there was a capital fund for potential mitigation if it needs to be. Because I'm trying to find out if we can get that GeoBrug fence replaced. At this point, everybody just kind of laughs and says, we've never had that question.
It wasn't engineered correctly.
Yeah, there's got to
With
be
the loads.
there's got to be a warranty on that.
It was designed for mud. It was not designed for snow because,
Duh.
so it's designed for mud, and the reason why is because mud flows where snow doesn't. And so that's the difference, and that's why it was destroyed. But yes,
That's the avalanche that it didn't float.
we're trying to go back in and see if that can, if there is some sort of a warranty. Everybody just kind of looks at me like, we don't think so, but we're gonna check.
Well, the question I have is are the anchors still in place? If the anchors have been removed, then I think they need to replace it. If the anchors are still, or are in place, then we should replace it.
Yeah.
But if it just pulled the anchors out of the ground, then it wasn't engineered correctly.
So we'll find out, and they'll go up and they'll look at it,
And remind me, was this
well,
a FEMA?
he took some
Or
pictures.
was this NRCS?
This was NRCS. So I've contacted them and I sent somebody the picture today, but they didn't respond yet. So, because that was the first picture
Yeah,
I'd seen.
it's very hard to tell.
And it's hard to see.
I can't tell. Yeah.
It's hard to see.
I'm hoping that it's still there and you've seen something wrong.
Well, I just
Or
think
I don't-
philosophically, speaking, they put this in to mitigate. It was taken out by a natural
A different natural
event
disaster.
that wasn't due to any poor planning or negligence on our
Yeah.
part. They should still have a
And
stake
the
in
county
having
is still
the project completed.
our
you know?
sponsor, so they haven't decided when they're going to be able to come up to assess damage.
But I'm just saying from the federal government's standpoint,
and
it
wouldn't
should be
they-
something that they would consider helping to fund fix anyway.
Wouldn't they have to wait till the snow is gone
Yeah.
to assess it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what the county has told me, that
Okay.
they're waiting
Okay,
to see.
Yeah.
so let's flip over to,
But just a consideration.
Yes.
When we are talking on page 6, there's a lot with regards to our past mitigation. And I would like us to see a fund that at least considers the possibility of future mitigation.
Chris, on lines .737 and .738, it's
Which page?
typos. It's just page 6. Mitigation is misspelled.
Yeah, I'll work on that. Your mic might be dying again. It's starting to get blurry and fuzzy. Windy.
Line 737 and 738 have typos. Mitigation is misspelled.
Oh, I caught that, but I'm just saying your
Okay.
mic might be dying.
Thank you. Girls upgrading me.
That's perfect now. Thank you.
Fresh battery.
Okay. Okay, now if you flip over to page 7, 8, 9, and 10, those are just reflecting the, and 11, those capital funds. So those aren't anything else that's just what we did back on page.
That's past, that doesn't need to go forward
No, that's what we're doing. Just a minute. Let me tell you.
currently with our current budget.
So we have the Mitchell driveway done, Northview Circle mostly done, with the exception of having to buy some wire and pull some wire.
Spring is not done.
Spring is not done. West Loafer's not done, and neither's
Oh.
Lower Oak.
Right.
So I've sat in roads meetings where they want to reallocate most of this money that's left over, but I don't think they have the right, or they didn't have where they want to allocate it quite ready.
Right. And so we'll talk about that in just a sec. But so if you go back to page 4, first at the bottom of the page, 4840, 4850, and then the next page, 4855. That's what these are.
Thank you.
These transfer to see so 48, for example, 4855 transfer to EMS Capital Projects Fund, $4,000. Then you turn over to page
Page 8.
yes. So that's page 8 is the EMS. And Chris, that one didn't get fixed.
Yep, I just noticed that.
So I picked the bad example. So 4860 snowplow. It should say 5,000. And why isn't that one fixed? Are they none of them fixed in mine?
Let me see. What page are you on?
Well, I mean, like, look at page 7.
Page 7. Okay.
So shouldn't that 50,000 be over here in my proposed budget?
Because yours says 0.
Or
Yeah,
is it?
it took it to the employees and not the mayor, so I'll get those fixed.
Okay. So anyway, but basically that's what
Is
those,
that going to change the bottom line on the dollars?
No. 'Cause
no,
it just-
these are just each their own page of
Okay, good,
showing
Good,
each
good.
project.
good.
We don't need that kind of.
No, yeah, no.
Need dollars here.
But that each of those pages, so where we transferred into those funds, then that they each will have their own page to account for accounting. Okay, then the next page 12 is water.
So we've got sewer there, and I don't know if this is the right time to talk about it.
Where sewer comes up on page
Oh, this is,
14.
I'm sorry. Well, this is income, so, okay. Because I,
Oh, because, yeah, which line are you talking about, Bob?
5150.
5150,
Yeah, that
sewer service and revenues.
says move to new Fund 52, so I think we'll cover that
Yes.
on the next page. So they basically
Okay, it's down at the bottom.
created a capital or a enterprise fund
To pass
just
through.
for sewer.
Right.
Because it's just pass through.
Yeah, so we could split it out from the water.
Well, we need to talk about that
Okay. All right.
at the right time.
Okay. So Chris, what do you want to explain about the water fund? I think it's pretty, well,
There, sorry.
So what we're seeing here in the service revenues is that from 2021 to the mayor's proposed budget, we have 80, 90% increase, and that's because of our rate increases.
yes. And this,
And most of that money then goes to bond payments.
The waterline project like that. directly.
correct. And this was we tried to be as conservative as we could on this revenue estimate. So the likelihood is that will be that or more. But we tried to keep that really conservative so that we would not overspend. And then, so then if you turn, I mean, we end up with a net in the black of about 39, just under $40,000.
And that's,
That then goes into the cap.
Mm-hmm. Well, that it's in an enterprise fund,
Leave it.
you can roll it over. Yep.
But we
Bank
could
it.
choose
Has
to
to
make
be
an
used.
extra bond payment.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Because it has to be used for water.
For this bond, I don't see any reason to make an extra payment.
Never. With zero.
No.
Because we're 0% interest.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
But yes,
Saying.
yes, typically,
Unless we're
yes.
just rolling it.
So, all right. So then the last page is,
So 5052 is on the bottom of this page. Impact fees, question about that. There is no impact fee.
yeah, but we're moving that. So turn your page one more time. Okay, now let's talk about it here.
On page 13
'Cause-
is where we're at?
Yes, 14,
14.
14. So now,
14, all the way over there.
yes, now we're to the sewer 5252. So now we can talk about the,
Okay, so Payson is wanting us to take over responsibility to maintain it. My position is that you never assume responsibility without the budget that goes with it. They have a budget allocated from our monthly fees for maintenance. And if they want us to take over the maintenance, then they need to give us the money or not take the money from us that they are now setting aside for maintenance. And so that would be my number one negotiation point with them on that, is that you never assume tasks without the budget to go with that task.
so you're talking about line 6285, our sewer service expense to Payson,
Yes,
that we should
there's a portion of that.
recapture
that we
some of that money for
capture.
ourselves.
Whatever percentage they're budgeting for maintenance, we need to have it.
Can I ask
Well-
a question about that? As I'm looking at the 2021 budget and then budget employees asked for, there's like, anyway, it went down.
Yeah.
Do we know why it went down?
On
Because look,
which line item?
6285. From 27 to 23.
On page 14?
Yeah.
yes,
Page 14, yeah, from
Oh.
2060 to 2300.
Also, Bob, when they say take over maintenance, what does that entail? Is that something that our city staff can do, or would we have to hire someone new?
We'd
How
have to
much
either buy
time?
new equipment or hire it out. And
Pay Payson to do it.
And by law, they have to scope the sewers every 5 years or every 2 years.
No, it's every 5, well, it's up to your insurance company because they're the ones that dictate.
Okay. I think they said 5 years, and this last year was the first time they did it in the life of the system. And it cost them a lot more than what they've collected in the history of our sewer.
right. Which
So
is
they
why,
would like to turn
Right.
all of that type of maintenance.
But as I
over to
understand,
us.
after reading the contract, as I understand it, they have a 50-year contract to do that. So
But-
if we assume that, then we're doing it because we're nice and not because.
well, however, they also have the ability to give us 1 year notice to discontinue service.
I'm not sure that's,
Yeah, I got a bid on my
Correct.
desk.
Okay.
It's like
That's what
but
they
that's what
told
we got to
me.
check on.
18,000.
Well, and we need to make sure that, I mean,
18 or- yeah, something like that.
yeah, because
So
that,
here's my question. Is this just a matter of, it
Just how
costs
much
them more, do they want more money? Or,
They haven't asked for more money.
so they
Yeah.
just want out of
They-
doing it?
And when we met with them a year ago, before they did this, they were alluding to wanting out then. And now
Yes.
they've sent us official letter saying.
Because
we
the
want
hard part is, I mean, we're not really equipped to do that. We'd have to find somebody
Right.
to do it.
out. You can hire it.
You know,
So is,
could be a nice side job for some of those pacing guys.
so is
But
this
the
just a
equipment
5-year? So we would have to put it in our budget every year, but maintenance is only every 5 years? Or is
Well,
there
no,
other
if-
things
if
they
you have a
do?
rupture, you've got to pay for the rupture. And so, but just the reoccurring maintenance, yeah, you got to do that every 5 years. The failures, you've got to pay for.
Corbett?
Right.
Yeah,
So
Corbett?
part of the problem with all of this is, all of this is designed, it's all financed, it's all set up by the engineer. So they go through, they have to have an engineer study, do everything. Their study says they only allow $3 per connection for O&M. And that's not enough to do Woodland Hills because the connections are so far and few between. They're fine in Payson. And so what they're telling me is that they're supplementing Woodland Hills with their O&M fees that they're collecting in Payson. They don't like that. And so,
Well, and I can't blame them.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
no.
reasonable.
I know.
But in reality, why didn't they take that into consideration when they signed the contract?
Well, I mean,
yeah, according to them, now I know it's not in writing, but according to them, we committed to them, I mean, however many councils ago that was, we committed to them that everyone that could connect would be required to connect.
And we haven't done that.
And that's never happened.
Okay. I
So
can
would,
understand that problem.
would there be a way to renegotiate with them for a fee?
I don't know. We haven't got that far. We're just, you know, we need to have it sit down and have the initial meeting. We've received a letter saying we want to transfer the maintenance to you guys. And that's as far as it is. So we need to sit down and talk
Yes.
and see where we can go. And so,
And we are not in the business of wanting to take advantage of them, but we have to watch out for our citizens also.
Well,
So-
since it would come under
And our-
Public Works,
Well, it
what
has to be a
what do you
win-win.
think? we
Exactly.
should do?
Exactly.
It's going to be a lot of work.
Can I?
I mean, it
ask
doesn't have to
maybe
be,
a very terrible question.
Yes.
it stinks.
Well, there's that too. But what if we were to require anyone who could connect to connect? What's the numbers there?
you'd go from about 40 connections,
Yeah, we're just below 40.
40 connections, something like that, to probably 75 or 80.
Okay.
And what is, because I'm not on sewer and I doubt that I will be. What's the cost for our residents to force them to do that connection?
Some of the residences were built to be able to make the switch pretty simply. Others would have to put thousands of dollars into running the pipes to their home.
Everybody in Thousand Oaks
That's really the issue. is
had
putting
to
the
put in a
pipes.
dry connection for sewer.
Right.
Mhm.
And so all they have to do is do a connect. So that's relatively, and that's
And
subjective.
then
relatively
start paying.
inexpensive.
And then start paying monthly and
Yes.
not use
And
their
they pay
septic
$54
anymore.
a month.
Right now,
So,
today.
And 1,824 impact fee to Payson.
Of
Oh,
Oh,
those-
yeah.
Sorry, Chris, can you say that again?
$1,824 impact fee to Payson.
Yes, also.
Plus whatever
the
goes to
54?
Woodland Hills for what we installed.
Okay, so again, just
Right.
asking questions. So could we require all those that do have the dry connect to connect?
Metro?
I don't know. That's a,
And if so, how many connections does that yield? I mean, again,
Yeah, I'm not sure how many have the dry connect and how many don't.
well, it would be everybody in Thousand Oak has a
Right.
dry connect. And then you've got about, 10, 15 homes in Thousand Oaks that are connected to sewer.
Yeah,
there's about-
and then there's the homes on Loafer that were in villages at Woodland Meadows.
But they don't have the dry
Right.
connect. They
Right.
would have to
No.
hook it
They
up.
have
They
to-
might,
I mean,
but
it would
don't.
obviously help. A lot of cities just say, when you sell, the new person's going to connect. We're not going to make the old people connect or the current residents, but we're going to make new residents connect. And you have a year to do it or whatever. But also, don't think that it's that terrible. I mean, the technology has come a long ways. So there's a technology called Sewer RAT, RAT. It's an acronym. I can't remember what it stands for, but it uses sonar. And so all the requirement is that you're aware of your system, that you take care of the trouble spots to keep them from being backups and causing a sanitary sewer overflow.
So
That's what the
sonar, you
state-
just drive over the top of it?
Well, you inject in a manhole and you receive in the next manhole, and then it
You're
kind
still
of,
kind of scoping it.
yeah, it analyzes through sonar the condition of the pipe.
okay,
And
so
so-
if I understand you correctly, you're now arguing for us to take over
No,
the
I'm
maintenance.
just saying that it's not as bad as we think.
Well,
Okay.
what would the equipment cost to do it?
Well, I don't think you could, I think that equipment is like $300,000.
That's my point.
Yeah.
But
So
they'll come and do it. They'll come and
you
do it
hire
and
that
build
to be done.
build you a history. I could run and get the bid, but I think it's like $18,000.
To do the whole system.
Yes.
So,
But they do the whole system, and then once you find out where the trouble spots are, those are the only sections of pipe that you deal with.
Right.
And then you can build a history that says, okay, this section of pipe or everything on Eagle Nest, we don't even need to look at it, but every 10 years, because we've already proven that we can go 5 years and there's no issues. We can go 10 years and there's no issues. And so you can reduce that frequency of inspection.
And because all the work that was done on the manholes, we don't have to redo that again? Or do you have to do that every year that you do the inspection? Because they
What?
tore up every manhole?
Oh, we just did collars and raised them to the surface and got them level with the road.
That's all we did? That wasn't required as part of the inspection?
No.
To get access?
Just to get to them.
Yeah, we had to have access to them. So yeah, some of.
But yeah, we don't have to redo that. It's
so
done.
is any of the Four Seasons on sewer and
Yes.
any of those additional, development that will happen on that side of town will all be sewer
Yes.
eventually, right?
Basically, as I understand it, everybody in Summit Creek is on sewer, and everybody in Four Seasons will be on sewer. And significant number of the new constructions are on sewer
Up
All
on
of the
Eagle
new
Nest.
in Thousand Oaks.
Oh yeah, all the new stuff is going
On there.
sewer.
It's just
Now-
the older stuff.
Now,
Like
mind you,
Mike
we don't
said.
have anything that requires that.
We should.
We
Right.
should. We absolutely should.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything.
Whether
that-
we take it or not, we should.
Well, and that might help
No,
in negotiations.
But no, we don't have anything that requires they put in sewer as opposed to
That
septic.
they connect a new house. We don't have anything that requires that a new construction connects to sewer.
It's a no-brainer.
The county,
I mean,
the
we
county has a lot more leverage on that than we do. Because the county says, if you're able to connect to public sewer, we're not going to give you a septic permit.
So do we have to have a city thing then if the county's requiring it?
Yeah, we should.
We probably should. I don't know.
Is it redundant?
Right, I
Well-
mean, because then when they change their rules, then we have, I mean, that's,
I think it would
But-
be better for us
but I
because
think-
it
I
shows
think-
Payson that all of these new homes that will go in will be
Well,
guaranteed
they
sewer.
probably already know
the county requires it.
requirements. But the thing about when a person sells that the new owner has to put in sewer, I think is a reasonable thing if we can do it.
Well, since there's a pause, I don't think it's right for the city to put a lot of pressure on people that have a septic tank and a connection pending to leave their septic tank until it fails. That's how I would feel as a homeowner that I paid for that.
Well, what I'm saying is that if you sold your home, the new
That's okay.
owners need to- But the
That's a
current ones,
new
we don't
ballgame.
have to.
That's a new ballgame, but I would not ever want to force them to do the flip over and then start having a monthly payment.
So then what I understood you to say, if somebody had to redo their septic system,
Definitely.
have access to sewer, can we force them to
County-
connect to sewer
Well,
instead of
The
redoing
county
it?
does,
county
the county does that now.
That,
Okay,
that's,
some
that's,
extent.
that's
They-
important
they
too.
don't
We
do-
should.
They can't require everyone to, but they've made the restrictions so tight that now you have to have your drain field and you have to have space for a backup drain field. And so if you don't have space for the backup, they won't give you a septic permit.
See, we need to not force those that are working well, but yeah, a sale or a failure, boy, that's the time to.
So
they
then
have
the other thing that I think we need to consider is some sort, and if, I don't know if it's legal, it's some sort of surcharge on the monthly sewer fee to help us maintain the system.
Well, get Payson to relinquish that $3 a month and that's a start.
Well, and if we could add another $3, that would be $6 times 12 times 40.
Right.
We get, $100 out of it.
And that's monthly. Isn't it?
And I think it's important to point out so that people know you're proposing a fee that you would have to pay.
That's right. I am.
So, yeah, no, and I mean, I think that's important so they
Until I
don't
sell
think
my
that
house.
you're throwing away somebody else's, you're throwing
I'm
around
not
other
throwing them
people's
under the
money.
bus.
I mean,
I'm going
yeah,
with them.
it's different.
We're holding hands.
It's a big bus.
Okay,
So when will we know more about that, since they've only sent the letter?
We've got to schedule a meeting. We haven't
Yes.
scheduled a meeting.
I
but
mean,
he's-
so what I'm meaning is for this budget, which is for next year, will this discussion
Right
happen?
now,
So if we
I
need
would
to
s-
put something in the
I don't,
budget.
I don't know that
should.
we have to do any maintenance on it this year since they just did the scoping last year.
and I would
And if we do, probably what we'll negotiate is that we won't take it over till the next fiscal year. So-
And I would also suggest that, I mean, this sewer budget is so simple that when things change, it's easy to open, fix it, and close, open it up and fix it if we need to. So right now, we're doing the best we can with the numbers we have. We should just stick with this. And we should move forward, and when changes happen, we can open this budget and fix it.
Yeah, the biggest concern I have is, to use a phrase from 3 years ago, is we got to increase the take rate.
Right?
Mhm.
We got to get. more
Which we are
people.
basically with all the new construction.
So, well, yes, we are with new construction, but I guess for me, it would be helpful for me to know how many homes do we have that are not connected to the system that do have that switch, that they could just switch.
Well,
If that's 3 homes, if it's 10 homes, I just don't even know. the
and we do
numbers.
have an incentive, what do we call it, a rebate for people that connect.
But they still have to pay the 1,800 in
Yeah.
impact fee to Payson, plus then the 55
Right.
a month.
Yeah.
So,
And many of them say, we spent $12,000 putting this system in. We're not interested in paying $55 a month for
That's right. That's-
sewage.
As I've talked to people,
Yeah, I know.
why should I go from 0 to 50?
Yeah, I don't blame them. I mean,
When I hooked 6 years ago, it was $14.
Yeah. And Payson's projecting another increase. And it's not their fault. They're having to comply with EPA.
I know.
So I'm not just saying that to you. I'm saying that for anybody that may be listening in the future. Just Payson's, just because they're increasing
The reality
isn't.
of it all, though, is that you could be required to go on public sewer. Everyone could. The Woods Pit, I mean, that's a multi-million-dollar business shut down because of the contamination from groundwater.
So that's
So
one of
It
the,
could happen.
we're really,
Don't think it won't ever happen. It could.
well, and that is one reason that we have been able to justify spending some global city money trying to incentivize people to connect and get as many people on as we can, because the more people we can get on, the more we can stave off them potentially requiring everybody that's on septic now. And so it is to your benefit to spend some money if we can keep them from from making you
So I did a
attached.
study 3 or 4 years ago on sewers and septic tanks, and 33% of the homes in the United States are on septic as of 4 years ago. And if you go on sewer, they say the value of your home goes up by 5%.
Because people are crazy.
I believe that because I have a septic tank and it's not my happiest part of my living.
I lived on a septic tank for 21 years.
I grew up on a septic tank, and we've had one since we've lived up here, and
I know, same with me.
I'm good with them. So,
Oh, you're just
and
lucky.
I've never had city stuff back up into my house,
Oh,
but I have had
that's
personal
important.
stuff back up into my
That's
house.
important.
I've never had stuff back.
But I'd rather have my stuff backing up into my house than the city stuff.
Really? It's all the same.
Where are we going here?
My stuff is finite.
But it's at least DNA consistent.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, there's only a finite amount. Anyway, all right. Okay, so basically, so the sewer budget is pretty cut and dried, and the water budget is fairly cut and dried. So basically, our discussion tonight is about this general fund and what are your priorities? Are you willing to spend money from our fund balance? And if not, I've given you some areas that I think are cuttable, and I want to know what your priorities are if we need to cut amounts from those. And then we can go back and rework this budget and bring another one
So
back to present.
The items that weren't yellow coded I haven't had a chance to really look, but basically they're staying the same as they were last year.
No, there's
There's
changes,
some-
and where things change, we put a lot of notes in to try and show you where things that are just pass-throughs, places where there are increases that, um, like, some of the, employee benefits that increased, we don't have control over. Things that were taken out of the budget last year that we've put back in because they weren't taken out permanently,
Right.
they were taken out to try and,
year.
Temporarily.
yes.
So,
And
so I would like to propose that we spend a little bit of time and talk in a 50,000 foot level about what our objectives are. And,
Excellent.
and not talk about, the standard things that we always talk about is roads and safety and water. Let's talk about what our objectives are behind that, because those three are knowns. So, but let's talk about what our objectives are. Once we can identify 2 or 3 objectives, then maybe we can go through these things and see where they fit against those objectives and decide we don't need to do it, or we need to add more money to it, or what it is good.
okay, so
So we're saying that mostly our main objectives are health, safety, welfare.
Right,
That's
right.
what we
Those
have
are
to do.
given.
So we're saying that those things are a given: water, sewer, roads, fire protection.
Mhm.
And so this is
EMS.
anything extra.
Yeah,
like-
and so one of the things, to kind of start off to a discussion, I think we need to add some quality of life things into our vision. Whether we fund those or not, I don't know, but we have operated on a shoestring budget in trails and parks and those types of things for many years. Is it time to add a few $1,000s? I'm not talking about a lot, but a few $1,000s to enhance those things, to make it better. We talk a lot about the trails. Do we need to have some sort of long-range plan on building trails? And maybe we only do a mile or a quarter of a mile or a half a mile a year, but we have a plan, and we go off and we start building and connecting trails and that type of thing, and add quality of life.
So can I just, years ago, when I started being involved with the planning commission, we talked about like a trail up Woodland Hills Drive
Mhm.
and how nice that would be.
Mhm.
But couldn't figure out really how you could make that happen. It was sort of talked to, somebody kind of bandied the idea out that, well, what if we drew up a plan of where we would want it to go, and everybody that would, all those property owners that were involved, anybody that was willing, we would do that now. And then we would do the same kind of thing we just talked about with sewer, require at the sale of your home, then the city gets the easement and can put in the next, that part. So we talked about that, but it just never happened. If it would have happened when we talked about it, that trail would basically be complete.
Correct. So
Now.
I know in Thousand Oaks, there's all kinds of trail easements.
Mm-hmm.
There's no trail easements on Woodland Hills?
Nope. Not
No.
on, not on Plat A
Well,
and
But
B.
what I'm saying is,
Plat A and B.
There
though.
is, but they're in the gully. They're not on the road.
along Woodland Hills Drive, you mean? Oh.
Going up, so for instance, where Lamberts live, down in that gully, there are trail easements that go, but they're horse trail easements.
Yeah, but we're not talking about from
We're
the
talking about
bottom
right
of town
on
up Woodland
Woodland
Hills
Hills
Drive. You're talking about it.
No,
Oh, you are talking about?
Lamberts,
Yeah, but they're up on Oak.
kind of, but
Yeah.
they're off, so Cowley's, Lamberts.
Right,
There's a trail easement that goes right down that gully.
Yeah.
right.
Right, but we're just talking about like from the mailboxes up.
No,
the
I
Plat A and
totally
B don't
understand
have
what you're
anything.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that
Yeah.
there is an easement,
Right.
and those residents have never been in favor of building that trail, even though there's an easement.
Right.
And partly, and I can't blame them, it puts people in their backyard.
Right.
Well, That's true. And tell me, I know all about that. Um,
Had we done it on the road, that's the right place. to
Well,
do
see,
it.
and that's, I mean, and so what I'm saying is, I like what you're saying. And I think, you know, at the time it was like, well, but we'd just be building bits and pieces of a trail and it would, what value would that be? And I say, but, well, maybe none today, but in 20 years, we'll have a really, I mean, if we would have done it then, we would have a nice trail up Woodland Hills Drive, which how much benefit would that have been? So if we can do something like that now, I think that'd be fabulous.
And so part of that then would be to have the Trails and Parks Subcommittee put together a plan and look at how much it would cost to do maybe, you know, $10,000-$12,000 worth of trails a year. I've got 2 people that have come to me that have equipment already and said they will volunteer their equipment and their fuel. I've got 1 person that has a D9 cat, said that he will do it. All he asks the city for is the fuel. And so if we do it ourselves, I think we can do, you know, for $10,000, I don't know how much we can do for just in materials, but we can do a reasonable
The question
section.
is, what kind of trail are we talking about? Is this an asphalt trail? Is this a?
Probably.
Well, that's part of what we have to
wood chip
decide.
trail?
Yeah, because
That's what we have to
you'd have
decide.
to consider ADA, you'd also have to consider an ongoing maintenance budget as well, not just to put it in, but the maintenance and
That's
things
right.
like that. So
So-
the trail committee though could
That's
look
right.
into that and then meet with the finance committee.
Well, and I think the first good step would be to,
Get a plan.
yes, have the system drawn up so that we have a whole system plan in place. And then it may take us years to complete it.
I agree strongly with the idea, just because anything we can, I mean, we are a destination for bike riders.
That's right.
Yep.
They want to go up Woodland Hills Drive and down Summit Creek, or up Summit Creek and down Woodland Hills Drive.
And so then what we do with these kinds of things is then we start having rallies where we charge entrance fees and we give money to support and do the maintenance on these things. And so I guess my real point is if we're willing to say that this is one of our priorities, maybe we ought to take and put into a capital account $5,000 or $10,000 this year that we can look forward to doing things. And maybe at some point, as we do the plan, we'll need to go out and do some sort of engineering or something to, you know, where we need a few $1,000s to pay for studies or whatever to do that. And so that's one of the things.
I'm in favor of this, especially to the thought of just start saving. We want to do it, and if you have money, it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Drawing a plan.
Yeah.
Because then it's opportunity. Sorry. I think drawing up a plan
Yeah.
too, because then as opportunities come, you get grants pop up and
That's
and
right.
then you can capitalize on them,
And-
right?
and-
The city
with
is
our-
really focusing a lot on their outdoor grants right now. and
That's right.
Several cities that I've been in contact with recently about some of their big projects, the majority of it would come as a majority of their funding came from those state grants, but then they were also able to partner with their counties with for additional funds from the county. And then a lot of cities have a Parks and Trail fee
Yeah.
that they, like a rep tax that's dedicated just to Parks and Trails. And so citizens can know that that money will always go to Parks and Trails, which is a quality of life.
Because if we're able to do that kind of thing, maybe we ought to study what a real restroom would look like up at the park.
It
Yeah,
would
With
yeah.
the sewer, of course.
It would look dirty.
John,
It would look dirty and we'd have
And the
to
other
clean it.
thing I think we need to consider is that we fought for years, at least the last few years, about the switchback and the switchback parking. It's not going to go away, especially since we're on the apps, all trail apps and that kind of thing. It's only going to get more. So let's embrace it and let's design and create a good parking place that is inviting and safe.
Yeah, I think that's what Corbett's been working on, and I think it's doable, but it does cost the money.
That's-
You know,
Again, this
so-
is, we may never do anything with this for 5 years, but let's have a vision and let's create a small savings account, as it were, to move forward with that.
Okay,
I have,
also, I think, Bob, a good first step would also be for us to get get MAG to come get involved with us, because
Mhm.
this is active
Yeah.
transportation, and they're funding things already out 5 to 8 years.
Yep.
right,
And
and
if-
they have money for trail plans.
And they will come and help us get on the list.
Yep. And so there's the trails, part of the quality of life. The other quality of life is,
Okay, hold on. So right now, we've budgeted $1,000 to go into Parks and Trails. So
I'll get 2
are
or 3
you
inches.
proposing that, yeah, I mean, you would like to propose that we consider increasing that?
yes, I would. And I recognize
And
what that means.
basically, that would also be, I mean, really, we move it out of fund balance into that. It would be, again, just moving
Mhm.
savings from one spot to an allocated spot.
That's right.
have
And then just, and then at some point, give the action item to the Trails Committee to do all this research that we're talking about. The other thing on quality.
Okay,
of
wait,
life-
just a sec. Did you have a comment on that?
No,
before
I
we
had
move on?
a new.
Okay, we'll come to you in a minute. Sorry, go ahead, Bob.
So as we consider, and I think that we really do need to look hard at expanding this building, not only for storage and maintenance, but using the upper part of that as a venue to be able to rent and to use.
Yep.
And I think that we need to design something that's attractive, inviting, where we can charge $300 or $400 for it. And again, I think that would be a quality of life. I think we could potentially, if we have the right kind of venue, we could get people from the outside that would want to rent it for weddings and whatever. And so I think it has a potential of being at least a cost avoidance on some of our maintenance type things that we do.
Yeah, some of
So-
the things that Corbett's shown, I think, indicate that would probably.
Yeah, he and I, we've talked a lot about
Yeah,
this.
so, yeah.
I'm just
we
trying
have
to kind of
too.
formalize it a
I
little
think we
bit.
all kind of have talked with him about it a little bit, but I think it's a good, because we already have that slope that needing to be rebuilt anyway. So this would put in that retaining wall there and make that safe, and then be able to utilize it from the top. I think it's a great idea.
Um, can-
Mayor,
Yes, just a minute. Can I just say in defense, we have actually spent a decent amount of money on Parks and Trails on our park. So the city has shown some willingness to spend money in that
Oh,
area,
oh,
but not
I-
on trails. So
I'm just saying that
I agree.
since the bond money is dried up,
yes,
we've maintained it. And I
yes,
think it's time to.
it's true. To
to-
keep moving forward, and
That's right. to
I agree.
And
expand.
I want to know,
Okay,
with
just-
with the development that's going to be happening, is there a way that we can have development agreements so where we have more green space in other areas of town instead of just in the one spot?
so we've got that. I mean, Summit Creek in their new proposal, right?
Mhm.
They proposed a whole bunch of trails. The catch, which we have got to keep their feet to the fire, is with them allowing our residents to use those trails.
Well, we've already got a verbal commitment to
I-
use them, but
I
I would like to see,
understand.
I'd like to see expansion of that.
Not only do we have verbal commitment, but we have, that's part of the Mountain Villa overlay zone.
Right,
So we have zoning commitment, but then anyway, I'm just saying it's a catch. But let me get back to something else. So Jody just brought up, right now we've got 0 for elections.
oh,
That's a mistake.
how did that? Yes,
right.
So
Chris?
that's another
Yeah, made note.
$5,000.
Where's that?
I made note of it. It's under administrative.
4170.250.
Thank you.
47,
Please, let's have elections.
which page was it on?
2.
Yes.
And it's 47.
Well, we're opting to not have elections. That's why it's under PUTIN.
I'm not finding it. Where
It's-
did you say?
Page 2, 4170.250
Oh, 250.
elections. And it needs to be 5,000. Is that what you said, Jody?
Yeah,
4,800?
$200 so we can like
Jody just saved us
buy
$200.
water for the poor
Well, and,
Oh, I
and,
guess
and
it's all
so
mail-in.
my quality of life, proposal is also to make sure that one thing that the pandemic has taught us is the value of our city personnel. And I think we need to make sure that they're being compensated for their time and that especially in the office, Jody's gone over and beyond what probably any other city has done in our state, and with the extra demands that we've had with litigation, et cetera, plus keeping up with building permits and minutes, and now we've expanded this year to all these different committees that she has to be responsible for, and the minutes and
And
all
litigation.
all of the state statutes that she's required to do, and we still have her as a part-time employee, and yet we pay enough overtime for her to be a full-time employee. I think we should consider that
I
and
think-
making sure that we are not taking advantage of that situation.
Well,
I have mentioned this before, I know definitely to you, but I think it's time for us to have a person who is our building secretary. So that Jody's not having to wear that hat on top of all the other hats. And just, again, the objective is not to remove Jody's expertise. It's just somebody who can handle the less technical questions and then get backup from Jody and Corbett when it comes to the real hard stuff. But just, that is a lot of work.
So,
secretary is a demeaning word.
Okay.
Clerk,
Clerk,
executive assistant.
right now we're trying to, we've got
We've got 2 openings.
yeah, and one is for a deputy recorder. And so so I think we will see between the,
By the way, I was trying not to use the term building official.
yes.
That's actually in our code.
That's right.
I think our first step will be to see between this new software, working with Sunrise and a deputy recorder and Jody, then how much of that time it would still be worth it to hire another employee.
So I think we need to go as a vision that we need to have more staff, more full-time staff. And to be honest with you, I believe that it is illegal for Jody to volunteer her time.
yes,
agree.
and I think it is a quality of life issue. I
And-
mean, we think that the park is a quality of life, but also being able to call and get information is quality of life. Knowing that you're going to have your building permit, there's
That's right.
so many issues that happen in this building that affect your quality of life.
I
I
would prioritize over that, if we could, to get a city manager.
I
Because I think a
A
city,
building clerk is a lot cheaper than a city manager.
yeah, but I think that we
Also-
have enough, we have enough complexity that goes on. And really, basically, you've got a volunteer mayor and a city recorder that are doing city management. And that makes it so that it shrinks your pool to a very small pool of people that are really available to be the mayor.
yes, I agree with that statement.
And so, looking forward, basically, your mayor has to be somebody who's independently wealthy or retired.
You are
I am.
retired?
I am retired and independently wealthy. No, but seriously,
The day-to-day.
there are many
operations.
people that I've talked to in our city that are wonderful and would make really good mayors, but they don't have full-time hours to put in voluntarily on being a mayor.
Well,
And so if we want to say that from our pool of citizens, there are only going to be 10 or 12 people even able to serve as a mayor, then maybe we're fine. But I seriously think moving forward, without a city manager, it really cripples your ability to.
So I don't think we want to get too far in the weeds
Right,
on some of this.
right.
So I would say that we need to have meet new staffing needs.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
and the action that I think that we ought to take out of that in this budget is funding a full-time recorder position.
Yep, funding a full-time recorder position. But to add to the mayor's point is, when we look around at other cities, when we look at what our needs are, having someone who's trained in management, those skills, the effectiveness and the efficiency that would come with those dollars spent would greatly enhance not only what happens here, it would organize it in such a way that our employees aren't being spread like this all the time. To have somebody that can bring that in and be able to advise then the council on what some of those real needs are, because I think that our staff who bends over backwards, we have Craig and Corbett and Jody here who do a lot of things that they don't ever tell us. And because they do that, it saves us money and it saves us a lot of heartache and headaches, but they're taking the brunt of it. And because they do that on their off time, or they do it with people yelling and screaming in their face, if we had a city manager who took the heat of that, and then they were able to do the job that they're paid for, the job description that we have approved for them to do, and not have to worry about all of these other things, I think the efficiency and effectiveness and overall quality of life would improve as our city grows from little town to city.
Okay, and so when we talk about these things, there's two aspects of this that we've been calling quality of life. There's the inward looking, that's from from our citizens to our employees, but then there's the outward looking from our employees looking out. And that outward looking, the inward looking out is called work-life balance.
Right.
And we need to have some work-life balance. And that's where we need the staffing and those kinds of things, not only to serve, it meets both of those objectives at the same time. It satisfies timeliness for our citizens, and it creates work-life balance, which creates higher performance
Okay,
or productivity.
so on this 2022 budget, we did budget for Jody full-time hours.
Okay.
And
So
she's
then
already,
do we have a budget for overtime?
no, not, that's what this,
Yeah.
Do we need to
Where
have
do,
a budget
where do
for
we,
overtime?
where do we get the money now?
well, so right now what we did was we added
on page
we
two?
added another part-time employee to cut back on the overtime. So we've budgeted
It's
for,
cheaper to hire a part-time employee than to
Oh,
pay
yeah, and to pay
additional
time and a
overtime,
half.
right? So is this on
We
page
haven't
2?
hired a part-time employee though,
but we've budgeted for that in this budget.
in this particular budget?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I was gonna say, because we didn't do it last year.
Right. So what we've done is in this budget, we figured out Patty's leaving, and we're going to try and hire 2 part-time people to replace that.
And
we
we're in the
think that
process of
won't
doing
happen
that.
Until June.
No, we're in the process of.
Well,
doing
we
that.
may,
They've been posted and.
No, I know they've been posted. I'm just saying, where's the money coming from? Because we didn't budget for it.
Well, Patty's salary, we did budget for that.
Okay. So
yeah.
that takes care of one. Where's the other person?
Well,
coming from?
And from what we're going to have to open the budget. We're going to have to open the budget already because we've paid so much overtime. And if we can hire somebody else, it will lower some of the overtime that we're paying going forward. So it's,
Okay. That's the answer.
yes.
So before, and I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm kind of taking over on this. But have we covered the work-life balance and the quality of life things? Are there other things we need to talk about? You know,
Would you guys be interested or looking at an impact fee for parks?
Okay,
Yeah, that's what I brought up earlier was that the backpacks or impact fee or something that would help just go for dedicated park money.
I'd like to see some sort of evaluation. I don't want to say study, that makes it too big, but an evaluation of what would it take to do it? What kind of fees can we charge, and what kind of monies would we then get, and where can we spend those monies?
So it actually, they go the different way. The impact fees want to know what you want and what you need, and then they base it off of that. So you got to have a plan first.
Okay. So then we'll get the plan together. So this makes it a little bit bigger. So the trails put together the plan. We take and interpret the plan into is what we want based upon the time span of how we're going to do these things, whether it's once a year or every 5 years or whatever, and how much trail we're going to do at a time. And then we figure out what the costs are and see what that would equate to a trails and park impact fee.
And would that, Chris, would that go through truth and taxation, or would that just be public hearing?
The impact fee,
Yes.
that would be, I think it's a council. It'd be on the public,
But, well, I believe though that also on an impact fee, you have to spend the money on an actual improvement, then you can charge an impact fee to anybody that comes in. Does that make, so you, and it can't be any kind of maintenance
So-
or,
I think you're right, but I think what Bob's talking about would not be an impact fee.
It'd be the RAP tax.
It
right.
would be a parks tax,
Most cities have that.
parks fee.
What does
Or
that,
what-
what does
whatever
that stand
the
for?
legal-
What is RAP?
legal term is.
Recreation,
Okay,
some arts and parks.
okay,
something like
RAP
that.
tax, okay.
Yeah, RAP tax. And so, but that has to go on the ballot, and the
Okay,
citizens
right.
have to vote to have it.
Okay.
And
So
so
I-
that is
I-
just something to consider, I guess, when the Parks and Trails Committee starts
Sure.
doing stuff, which of those two funding streams would be more
Well, and honestly,
applicable?
so can I maybe back up from this conversation a bit? And here's a thought that's been on my mind. As I've looked at, I've made a comment to a few of you that we've changed as a city. One of our city's kind of founding fundamentals was we were a small city.
Mhm.
Not.
When I built my home, I took my plans to somebody's house. And they had one room in their house where they stored all that paper. And that was cool.
Mhm.
When we had the planning commission meeting, it was down in the fire thing
Right.
right below us.
I'd-
chairs and a
Before
table.
that, it was
Metal
in our
chairs
base,
and a
it was in our
table.
garages.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
I had to learn how to drive a fire truck so I could get it out of the building every
And,
meeting.
and so and I've even looked at this from the standpoint of the litigation. A lot of the frustration that I sense, and again, I'm not trying to put words in anyone's mouth, but they're expecting us to have the resources that a Provo or a Spanish Fork has. Like they keep expecting us to be able to come up with records from 12 years ago, or 15 years ago. And they were in somebody's house. And they might have gotten moved, but they might not have. And there's just this frustration. Why aren't you professional? Why aren't you, why don't you have everything digitized? Why don't you have it available online? Why does your website suck? Why, it's all these things that they keep bringing up. Well, it's because our city's identity was we're a small town. That was our identity. Now, the question that I have that is the bigger question is, are we willing and able to have that identity change? And so, when we talk about things like a RAP tax, or when we talk about even the private roads and gates, my biggest concern is that what our residents want? So I'm actually very glad that we could not implement that tax without a citywide vote.
Right,
I would not want to make that decision as a council member.
right.
I want that to be a resident question.
Right.
Yes.
And then the same thing is true, honestly, when we start looking at having legal bills of $130,000 a year, or having a city manager Those are all fundamental shifts in how we have approached being a city. And I would like to get far more public input on those kinds of questions. If people are okay with us not having a bathroom up at the park,
We don't need one.
then we don't need one and we can stay simple. But we either need to stay simple or we need to be okay with growing.
Well, and
But-
I think what you said there, grow up. We went from having a small town with just a few, really not very many homes for a long time. And we've grown into a small city. And so there have been, even though we might not notice it, we have had a lot of changes. But we haven't always kept up with the changes that come with the population growth. I think the bigger question is, how do we keep the quality of life of a small town, a small city, and still grow? We know we still have at least the ability to have another 600 homes. That will greatly, that would put us over to, 2,000 to 3,000 people. Now, as we grow then, how do we maintain the quality of life that we're a small city, but we also maintain our sustainability as a city to be able to provide these services? And I think that's the question that the residents need to answer on, in terms of how we're going to pay for those services. How do we pay for the basic infrastructure, the roads, the water, the sewer, this building and our staff, which are all quality of life issues, but then there's those extras that they ask for as we grow to a city. How do we maintain that and yet still have where people wave at each other at the mailboxes and know each other?
Well, but I think you're talking about, we need to decide as a city and as a community, what services do we want to provide and what, I mean,
And what do we
and,
want?
but I would also like to back up and say, yeah, we're talking about $100,000 in legal fees, but that's really
150.
mostly one family.
Well,
The whole community can say, that's not what we want to do, but one family can generate those kind of fees. So we,
Yeah, I
can- so,
understand.
That's not a choice.
but as far as these other things, yes, I mean, when we moved up here, the children were not inhibited by any property lines.
Nope.
Nobody said, your kids are in my yard. The kids would make trails through people's yards and people were happy to see them.
Yep.
We didn't have to have a trail because wherever somebody wanted one, they just blazed one, and it went through whoever's yard they wanted. Now we have many more people that live in our city that don't really like that approach, and so we need to decide as a community, what do we want to pay for? What do we look at as the beauty and the kind of the quaintness of a small
I just wanna
town?
throw this out there regarding building. Right now, we're getting a lot of free labor from our planning commission to do site plan reviews. And again, it's this, we were volunteers. I mean, we came and nailed to build this building. We came and hung sheetrock. We came and laid carpet. That is the identity that our city has had. And we were okay with it. Now we're getting folks who are coming and saying, the city doesn't do this, the city doesn't do that. Come and get rid of a rattlesnake in the park. And I'm like,
Where's your shotgun?
who would you like to go do that?
So,
There's just this difference in how we've approached things in the past, and is it
Right.
and I
some of what you're saying, I mean, earlier you talked about we need to choose. Well, in some cases, and maybe a lot of cases, that choice has already been made for us by the growth of the city. We don't have, we no longer have the option of choosing because it's forced upon us. We don't have the option of choosing sewer or septic. New construction in certain parts of the city, it's there. And the same thing.
With snowplow or,
Yeah. And
we used
so,
to not pay for snow plowing. People just did it because they
Well,
wanted to.
And also, we have a lot more state regulations and requirements
That's
that are
right.
coming on us that we didn't used to have to.
state and
comply with.
federal.
Yes.
And so some of those choices are removed from us and we just have to do our best to keep up with them. And hopefully we can do some forward looking and get ahead of them to some
Well,
degree.
but the question of city manager or not, that's a symptom of this problem.
Well, I see it as a time. Is this the right time to have it, or is it going to be in 5 years from now? We're going to have one at some point. But what is the right time? And I don't know that any of us know that today is the right time to do the city
Right.
manager. But we know
Right.
that at some point, it's going to be a must-have.
Well, and I don't think that the city manager or not takes away from being small town. It just puts it into perspective of what the mayor was saying earlier of how many people does it take to run our city effectively and efficiently. We have very limited revenue resources, and they're spread very thin right now. We're a 40-year-old city, and like I was telling our finance committee, I feel like we still run on the newlywed budget from paycheck to paycheck. And it's time that we get to a different spot. And somebody who is trained in management, in public sector management, who understands taxpayer dollars and can efficiently and effectively run the city, that gives the council some stability in making legislative decisions. It gives the mayor a new perspective, and it gives more options for those who can run. The last 3 or 4 mayors have had to subsidize the city with time and money. They've almost all hired an assistant on their own dime. They've almost all had to use their personal finances to conduct mayor business, let alone doing management of our employees and of our, just the amount of time and effort it takes in to put in. Even if we're a small city, we still have state statutes to comply with. We still have regulations on state and federal levels, and somebody has to manage that. And I think it's important that we recognize that whether we're a small city or there's a big city, someone who has a knowledge of how to do that could be effective use of our money.
The big difference, and I realize that there will be some efficiencies gained, but big difference is the paycheck. If you add a city manager, even if you're sharing it amongst different cities, it's a bigger hit to our budget.
It is.
What if the mayor told us how much money in the last 4 years that she spent out of her own pocket to run
Well,
the city?
I
right?
hear that,
what
but
I'm
that's
saying.
out of her pocket.
But I
That's
I'm
not
saying
out
that
of our budget.
we can't expect that whoever comes in as the mayor could do the same thing.
I
And
also,
then the level of services
But
goes
Carrie,
down automatically.
I think it's
The
time to
point
move
is-
on.
yes, but I would
The
say
thing
that,
I'm concerned about is I go back to that town hall, and after that town hall, when individuals came up to me and said, I can't afford to live here anymore.
That's right.
That's the person I'm concerned about.
Well,
Right.
of course,
Well, I'm concerned about the fixed
Mhm.
income person.
right,
The
exactly.
other
That's the
people,
calls I
I'm really
get
not
from.
that concerned about.
right, but my
Fixed income.
Yeah, and we have a lot in mind.
also my concern is that we somehow need to reframe some expectations, because I just believe that our citizens expect too much out of their planning commission and their council and their mayor. They expect us to behave like we're being paid for a professional job when we're volunteering. And and that's what comes out of the town hall meeting is you're not doing this, you're not doing this, you're not doing this. And they're wanting too much time. You guys are fabulous. You're willing to devote a lot of time, but I also think as a citizen, I should be grateful for what you're giving and not angry that you're not delivering more. Does that make sense? And that's what I feel is somehow we've got to reframe some expectations, or people have to say they're willing to pay more money, and a lot of them don't have it. And we love them and we want them in our community, and we want it to be a community that they can afford to live in. So we've got to find a way to strike that balance, because I hate hearing people come in and be angry at our planning commission because they're not doing enough. Those people spend hours and hours and hours serving our city. I mean, does that make sense? That's, I mean, and yeah, you can trace back through our mayors and it really, there's an unreasonable expectation on mayors in this city.
That's a tall pole to climb. Um, and a multiple year activity.
Yeah, it is. But I think it's good for us. I think it would be good for us to find out and to try and put good expectation, I mean, put some reasonable parameters out there and get some good feedback over a period of time from our citizens. Like, who do we want to be? And what do we want to do?
Yeah, I think
What,
that's
what
an
kind of a
important
city
part.
do we, are we the city where after a rainstorm, everybody goes out and sweeps the gravel off of the street in their, front of their own house? Or do we send a street sweeper in to clean the roads? I mean, and those are not right or wrong or good or evil decisions, but that's a quality of life thing. I mean, we need to decide, are we,
It's an identity.
it is,
Yeah.
it is, excellent.
It's an identity.
Exactly.
So then, one of the things that I think that we need to consider, I'm trying to change the subject.
Okay,
I think we need to create, and this has got to be framed the right way. We need to, well, backing up just a little bit. Every undeveloped lot is costing us money.
okay, wait, are you talking about without a home
Yes.
or undeveloped?
Undeveloped, one that does not have a home on it,
Okay,
one that we're
So
not
platted,
collecting.
but no home.
Pardon me?
Platted, but no home.
Yes.
or what about unplatted? I'm just trying to
Yeah.
find out what exactly you're talking about.
I think that unplatted would also fit into this.
Okay,
And so with that concept in mind, without losing our identity or losing our soul, I think we need to become a development / contractor / new resident attractive community. I think that we need to consider unnecessary regulations that don't add value, that aren't required, and see how we can modify them or reduce them so that it becomes easier to develop, easier to build homes, easier to move in to this attractive Woodland Hills community. And even though a new house doesn't get us a lot of revenue, where we are, every $100 makes a difference. So how we do that, I'm not sure, but I think that we need to have a vision in the back of our head that says, this is, as we work on this ordinance or we work on this aspect of something, does that really add value? And if I was the customer, would I be willing to pay for that additional expense?
so I agree with you in some senses, but in other senses, if you look through like the old original plots A and B town, we're only about 50% built out.
Yeah.
If you double the population in that area, it would increase revenues, but it also increases, when you increase population like that, then it increases people's expectations and frictions and increases the need for more government.
I've seen that.
With that in mind, then we don't want to approve any more new developments.
No,
No.
I'm just saying there's a balance to be struck there. So you are getting more money, but then now you're getting more issues between neighbors
Sure.
that now the city has to,
There's
so it costs the city more money also.
in-
So you have to, there's a fine line.
Yeah, in virtually everything in life, there's risks and
Right.
benefits. And we have to get the right balance of that. And that's what I mean by not selling our soul and not losing our community values.
Right.
But we need to do that.
But I agree, we don't even,
We don't.
beyond everything else, we don't want a reputation of being obnoxious to work with, to
Well,
build a home.
we do have.
I know, we don't want it,
So-
but we have it.
We don't want to hinder anybody coming here. So what I think you're saying is we look at what's required and then we look at what's not required that we have been asking to see, does that enhance our quality of life or is it hindering development?
Yeah, does it really add value to the overall process of coming to Woodland Hills and enjoy the beauty and the community that we have?
Right. Okay.
And I don't know that there's any budget associated with that,
Right.
but I've talked about the things I want to talk about. I don't know if
Okay.
anybody else has any thoughts.
Well, 50,000 ideas about what our priorities as a city are. Anybody else have?
Can I make a quick comment?
Oh my gosh, Paul, you're here.
Yeah, I've been here for probably good 45 minutes to an hour. I'm sorry I was so late. We got here and there was 4 feet of snow blocking us from getting into our driveway. So we had to grab the shovels and
You
start
should
this.
call the city there and complain.
Oh, I will. I will. But I've just been sitting back and listening. And on the one hand, I have such appreciation for all those who work like, you guys and our committees and our commissions and so many people and even our paid employees who do so much that you guys have been talking about. There's such a level of appreciation. My concern is, and I missed the first part of the meeting, and so it may have been discussed then, but I know last year, we spent so many hours talking about the budget and pulling it back so we wouldn't have to really raise taxes much. We did a little bit, but not much. Now I'm hearing a lot of spend requests that seem to be above and beyond that. And the example I'm kind of thinking of is I kind of feel like we're trying to barbecue, put a barbecue together for our friends and neighbors. And we've got a pack of about 8 or 9 dogs biting us in the rear while we're doing it. And so do we turn around and fend off the dogs? Do we get the barbecue done? That's the balance that we're talking about. And, when I look and we're looking at potentially, I don't know, $11,000 to $12,000 a month in legal fees to fight the Fuja lawsuit. We've got grandma requests that are taking our employees' time, so they're not able to be proactive. How do we overcome those obstacles so that we can start looking forward? We can turn back to the barbecue and start flipping some burgers for everybody. It just seems like I'm so concerned about that. And again, I apologize if maybe at the beginning we talked about a new funding source in the city, increased revenues. I don't know what it is, but I hope I'm making sense. I'm really concerned that our city is getting eaten up right now, primarily by the lawsuit with the Fujas and the grandma requests that they're consistently pouring onto our employees, and they're not getting anything done. We're paying them in essence, to fulfill grandma requests that we can't get compensation for under state law. We can get compensation for a portion, but not all the cost. And it's just slowly eating us alive. How do we deal with those distractions, or do we not? Do we just take, like Bob, to your point, do we take a leap of faith and say, let's turn our backs? We know we're going to get bit a little bit, but let's flip some burgers. We got a city to run. And in essence, I think we've been kind of doing that recently, just saying, look, we have to prioritize. We can't spend all of our time on the lawsuit with the Fujas. We've got to get to other city business. And so we're doing the best we can there, but I'm kind of rambling at this point. I just wanted to see if there's any thought on how do we deal with this overall issue and get moving forward instead of turning backwards.
We didn't really talk about that, but we did talk about the challenge of how are we going to stay neutral, because that's what we're trying to do, is stay neutral in a issue that they're trying to pull us into on one side or the other. And
yeah, we really can't. If the minute we try to do what the Fujas asked, we're asking for a lawsuit from the Adams, because they'll be significantly damaged. And so you're right, we have to try to stay neutral and just say we're just going to enforce our laws, and that's it.
Well, and to put it with that, Paul, is to think, as we're going over our budget, we talk about what percentage of each of these items come out of our budget, and recognizing that legal fees are now taking nearly 12% of our city revenue. I mean, I said our city budget. That's a pretty significant amount.
Well, not only that, it's not just the legal fees. I've put a pencil to this, and I'm predicting we are paying 20% of our budget, at least, on the fuges.
Because of a neighbor dispute.
Because of the employees working on the wrong things. I mean, if you put a pencil to it, this is ridiculous. And we're going to raise taxes to cover, and we can't even cover it doing that. So,
Well,
or borrow from our bank account.
Yep. We're gonna start saying no to a lot of essential services because we can't pay for them.
Absolutely, I totally agree. But as kind of an underlying current to this theme, I think we have to say that in every fiber of our body, we believe that we have done the correct things. And where we haven't, we are willing to stand up and be responsible.
Correct.
But to just carte blanche take on its surface of what we're being accused of, and going with that, we then create a bigger problem. And so what has to be understood by one and all is that we are on a tightrope. And if we go too far left or too far right, too far to the atoms, too far to the fuges, we will take a big fall, and it will bring everybody down with us.
Well, and we should take a big fall because we should not be taken aside in
Yeah.
this. We should
Yeah.
absolutely, I mean, it's correct. And the other thing I think is important is for this, I don't know how to do this because we're not trying to attack or belittle anybody or, however, this is a problem with all the citizens in the city. This isn't a problem of these families and 6 of us and our 5 employees. This is all the citizens in the city. If they're upset with the city, they're upset with everybody that lives in Woodland Hills.
Right.
And they're coming after all the citizens of the city, not 12 of us.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. I think some of the citizens, first of all, don't even know what's going on. Some of them that do, they don't understand. They're all being put,
They're impacted.
being impacted by this. Yes.
That's right. And it, we've been talking about quality of work, quality of life issues. This is a significant quality of life. And I hope that the willingness to meet with us, with the attorneys and that, will be fruitful so that we can draw this to an end, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a moral, cultural issue. And I think that kind of what Paul asked about earlier is, do we worry? Do we stop? Do we only focus on the dogs, or we start doing, barbecuing the grilling the dogs, the hot dogs, not the dogs, the hot dogs.
The burgers.
Sorry.
The burgers.
The burgers.
Not our lovely burgers, though. We love our burgers.
Yeah, because that's a member. That's some of our citizens that are burgers.
Exactly.
And so I think that it's, after, I'm speaking for myself here, after I've basically been on the council now for a year and 2 months. And after this last year of trying to cut every corner and look at every dime, it has not been productive for a variety of reasons. One is that, like we've talked about earlier, we have individuals that are trying to suck us into their fight instead of the fight with neighbors. And we can't do that. And second, the mitigation project sucked a lot of wind out of our sails.
It did.
And still has some ongoing ramifications in that we believe that some of those things have failed. And so we may have to spend some more money there that we don't want to spend. And so I think it's time to put our shoulder down and lick our wounds as we go along and look to the future. And that's why I wanted to do this thing of looking at some objectives and looking at some quality of life things so that we can add some joy to our community.
I agree.
Good point.
I like it. I found, I had children that were very lively and very hard to kind of corral and control. And I found that when we went places, things went much better for me if I just took off quickly and they had to keep
with-
up than if I tried to herd them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I think we've probably been in a herding stance in the city, and it's time for us to pick up, stand up, and take off and lead. I think that would be great.
And another way of saying it, we've been on the defense, it's time to go on the offense. And I don't mean that against any individuals, I mean that against our environment.
Moving forward.
Our environment,
Right.
whether that's
Yeah.
social, economical, or environmental, it's
Okay.
the environment.
Well, and
You
I
know-
think too, when COVID has shown that more people, quality of life increased for people, the need for quality of life increased. More people want to be outside, more people want to have places to enjoy with their families.
To have
And so-
fiber to their home.
And the fiber to the home was one of those things that, people fought us a lot on that. And yet, when it happened, I don't know if it was the same with all of you, but I got a lot of calls saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. At least I can work from home. My kids can do school from home. That was a quality of life issue once it happened, right? And the same thing will happen, I think, if we look at a park plan, or if we look at a trail plan, or if we do something here at the city center. All of those things help to increase that quality of life that I think people are really craving. Now it's just trying to make sure that what specifically they want and how we would pay for it.
Yeah, I'm to be honest, I'm kind of disappointed in our Zoom attendance.
Isn't that crazy?
How many people attend?
Not really,
There's
just
only
us.
one person that is not either.
That's your wife, Bob.
So then there's
Well, that's
nobody.
cool. No,
There's
no
nobody
one is
really
interested
that
in
is a lay person from the community that
I'm not sure how much we really advertise this meeting, though.
We did. It
With,
came out
with
on,
advertising the way we do every meeting.
Yeah.
It went out, but
and
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Janice.
I got the email with the link.
way to go, Janet.
And we're not ignoring you, Wayne. We know you're there too.
so
Wayne,
so
yeah.
she's there so that when I go home I can get a good critique.
and she doesn't
Your
have-
grandchildren have been listening and they're like, oh, there's Papa.
Anyway, no, I appreciate that input. I think that I have thought a lot recently about, saying, what's our big picture? Where do we really want to go with our big picture? And then drilling down. I like your idea of I would love to get some more public feedback about
Mhm.
who are we? Who do we want to be as a city? Because it becomes much easier to defend from people that are unhappy if we can say, but that's not who we are.
And Mayor,
Pardon?
wasn't
Yes. Yes, it was a conscious
wasn't that
decision.
what we had Rod helping us with?
Rodmund?
Rod
Yes,
Munn
and
and Paul, they were kind of
Yeah, but-
started that before COVID, and then everything kind of
Yeah,
Well,
and
right.
Rod got a
So
real
maybe
job.
we
That's
should
right.
maybe we should start with that again and seeing where that takes us, because they did have a pretty good plan. I mean, I think Paul
Right.
and Rod had a pretty good plan in place of getting public input.
right. We've missed a little bit of that boat because Rod's got other things going on, but we can still go back and kind of pursue that tack.
Well, and that's an area where MAG can also help.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, they did the planning commission survey, which it's
Mm-hmm.
now been 5 years since we did that. So
Probably
it
needs to
would
be done
a good
again.
idea to do another one.
So we should
But
get,
And I would also say, I think we need to do a town hall as soon as possible. And I realize there's all kinds of medical stuff. I get that. But I think, and even if we were to do groups of 20
mhm.
or whatever, outside at the park, whatever, I think it's important that we just get some of that input to say, okay, we're looking at getting a city manager. And the reason is because the amount of things that we as a city are being asked to do has increased dramatically. Now, and like that, I also want to make another observation. We now have a Trail and Parks Committee. We have a Finance Committee. We have a Public Works Committee. And we have many of our citizens, Planning Commission, many of our citizens donating, volunteering time.
And they're awesome.
Our Adjustments Committee, holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
The amount
Yeah.
of hours that they've spent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of disingenuous for me to say this because there are so many who are helping. Our Communications Committee, Transparency Committee. There are
Yes.
so many that are helping, and I want to sincerely thank every single one of those people. And as I look at the identity, as I think, who are we? That's what makes me have hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Are all of those people
That's
that are
true.
willing to help and
Exactly.
willing to contribute their time and efforts.
And their name's not going up anywhere. They're just doing it because they love our
I-
city.
Anyway, so hopefully our residents can see that there are a lot of things that are happening that are super, super positive, and that we are getting the biggest bang for our buck. But I do agree with you. I think maybe resetting those expectations and just letting people know, hey, look, if actually I was walking a couple Fridays ago and there was some residents that were picking up trash on Woodland Hills Drive.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
You know, just they were going for their walk and they picked up trash as they did it. So as I say this, I'm like, gosh, people do this. But we, you know, Jody and Corbett and Craig are not the only three. It's
Right.
all of us. We're all in this together, and we all need to, you know, realize that this is our town.
I think it would be an interesting statistic, however you say that word without lisping, to have a number of the people that are in formal volunteer positions, and to be able to share that number with our citizens, so that we could say, you know, that 3 years ago, we basically had 5, 10, whatever. Now we have 60, 70, 80, whatever that number might be. I think that would show that that more than transparency, we have involvement
Yes.
and collaboration.
And we haven't even mentioned all the fire and EMS.
Right,
And people.
what would you think, Mayor, if we took all of those, fire, EMS, our volunteer service, the committee's volunteer service, and for the next 3 months, we just track those hours? Because on a state level, the state does that and they give it a dollar amount. And every year at our budget retreat, we could say, this is our budget and this is how much our volunteer hours that were put in and what that would equate to monetarily.
Yeah,
As
but
a,
then we'd have to have a city manager to do the calculation.
Yeah. We'd have to get another volunteer.
but I think it would go a long way into showing what David just talked about, the appreciation,
Mhm.
not just saying, we appreciate that you did this, this, and this, but
Right.
we appreciate it for the value,
Right.
the actual value that it brings to the city. And it is quite a lot.
Okay. So for tonight, excellent. I'm not trying to shut you down. I think that's a great idea. And I think it would be a great idea for the people that aren't participating right now for whatever reason. I mean, you know, everybody's got time of life and interests, and some of them are serving in other places and not in the city, you know, and that's fine. But I think it's nice for them to see how many of their neighbors are putting in real time and real value.
Yeah, I'd just like to say something about somebody that's here that I've talked with a lot on numerous occasions, and that's Mike Taylor.
Yeah.
We asked Mike Taylor to do something that he's not comfortable with, that he doesn't consider himself an expert at. We believe that he has lots of skills in that area, but he, for his humility, doesn't. And yet he's done it, and he's done an excellent job. And that's just one people. We could probably name every single person that's doing that and point out that they're doing it because they feel part of a belonging and a need to be involved, and it gives them an opportunity in a meaningful way to do that. And so yeah, I think somehow we need to have some sort of appreciation for all of these folks, some sort of a celebration, because that's part of the whole process of
Yeah, that
counting your
intrinsic-
wins and celebrating them.
That intrinsic motivation that our citizens have to serve
Sorry,
in
Mike.
our on our behalf, in our capacity, because all of our committees are put together because we asked them to. We asked, each of us went to people in our community and said, would you serve in this area? And they all went, well, I guess. And then they stepped right in with both feet, and they have done a phenomenal job. And I think that that lends to that whole idea. This is still a small community where people are willing to serve.
We
People
could
still
not
see
be
it that
doing
way.
what we're doing today if
No.
it wasn't for people like Mike Taylor.
There's no way.
Well, we have you here too.
And Newt,
And dude,
Absolutely.
and a lot of the people that, and Wayne.
And don't forget the snowplow drivers.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for them.
yeah, I may have to go plow.
But, so anyway, so for tonight, this is what I'm asking. I've proposed a budget. What I need is for some input from you over the next week or two about whether I've given you, I mean, we can balance it on fund balance, or if there are, and I've given you areas that I think we can cut. I mean, that are the places that would be cut if we need to, or how we can justify using fund balance to make this budget balance, what we need to do to look forward. Do we want to consider, there are revenue streams that we're going to try to work toward getting that, but we can't guarantee them yet. So we're not budgeting, putting them in our budget yet.
So here's what I would like to ask, and this is just me speaking. I don't have, nothing pops out as being exorbitant. And so what I would like to understand to try to balance this, and we probably have to wait, and I don't know if we can wait that long, but to get what our real revenue is going to be based upon the rates that they're going to assign
That
to
comes
us.
in June.
Yeah.
That's the part that's.
There's the rub.
It comes
All right,
the
and
week
so-
before we have to have this approved.
And so then we,
We have to guesstimate
Yeah.
until then.
and so, but, and that's kind of what I'm saying. If we had that number, and then we could equate to it, to what is that going to do to our tax rate? And if it,
We should get that changed.
and if that tax rate then increase is something reasonable, then I would be willing to vote for this the way it is. But if that tax increase becomes burdensome, then I would have to say, okay, let's go in and look at what we got to cut.
So this budget that we've been given here tonight to go home and ponder about has us taking that 277,000 plus out of our fund balance, plus a 3% increase in real dollars.
Right. And so that's
Okay.
basically what the tax increase
Well,
would be.
I-
3% actual money from your pocket
well,
and from
well,
his pocket.
I don't like to use the two, it's actually 277, not 266.
It's actually 282 because we put in
282.
something else.
282.
What was
So-
the other thing that we had to add?
What I would
The
like,
$4,800 for the elections.
I would like
Oh.
to see the difference between what we're reallocating into a different fund versus what we're just truly taking out. Does that make sense? So we have some of this money that is moving from snow plowed
Right.
to another capital.
Right, it's coming
account.
from
I can tell you that right
savings.
now.
It's coming from, instead of just saying.
Chris
it's
can
coming
give us that number right now.
all from our fund balance, some of it is savings getting from fund balance, getting moved to capital projects.
And that's an excellent process to do in that we have then a true capital
Right.
/ savings account for a future expenditure, known expenditure.
Although I do kind of, I mean, in one way, I just want to be cautious of running a budget off of deficit spending.
Well,
Right. And that's where I've
And
got,
that's where I kind of get a little
Well,
anxious.
that's why I want to know what the difference is. So, because
Yeah.
this isn't artificially a high number. And I think it's significantly different than that. And I'd really like to know what the
It was
true
about.
Okay,
takeout
just a
is.
minute.
About 65,000?
Just a minute. Yes, so subtract 65 from
So
282.
it's- So it's still over 200.
Yeah,
Okay, so it's
So it's
worse,
still
it's still
significant.
worse than I thought it was.
yeah, it's still,
significant.
yes. Yes, just a minute, we need to get you a
Need to
mic.
get you a mic. Corbett says.
Give it a go.
You're mic'd up. Mike, you're mic'd up.
All right.
And you feel like you're a press conference.
This is our committee's fault because we have not gotten you the numbers, but we were asked to consider a security system placed in cameras placed strategically through our city.
Water tank.
And we apologize, we haven't got those numbers to you. We don't know what those are going to be. We don't think it's going to be real heavy.
Okay,
But is this something you're still interested in
Yes.
us presenting to you?
I think we have to be able to make choices.
mhm.
And we can't make intelligent choices without the data. And so, yeah, I think we need to know what it is so that we can make a conscious decision to say it's worth raising the taxes or it's not.
Well, and frankly, a lot of that's water security, and that comes from the
Water budget.
Water Enterprise Fund, and that is,
Goes up on the water tanks. I think they wanted it at the mailboxes and
Yeah,
at the
that would
parks,
be
parks
not
and
water,
recreation
but-
areas.
yeah, but some of this would,
Fire
it wouldn't
station.
all necessarily come out of the general.
So,
fund.
so when we talk mailbox, are we truly talking mailboxes or are we talking the roundabout mailboxes and Summit Creek mailboxes? Do we need to be considering security at both of those?
I think Summit
We,
Creek has
we
their own
hadn't,
security.
we hadn't
They
included
already
some
have
Creek.
cameras there.
Well, I think we need to know whether or not, yes, Joe.
Go off of what was said last night by the planning commission. Those gates belong to the city.
Right,
They're on public roads, they're public easements.
Well, and therefore we have to maintain them.
Therefore, we have to maintain them. When the mailbox facility, that really is also a city
Yes.
facility.
Okay, so we need to know whether or not they currently have that and whether or not we should assume that responsibility and being fair to them.
We will look into that.
Because if they have it and they're paying for it and it's on our property, we need to make a conscious decision whether or not we're going to allow them to continue to do that. And/or is it fair to have them do that
Yeah.
when it's our facility?
So Jody.
and
the
which
mailboxes-
they may want to, because they may want to determine what security they have. I mean, they may want more than what we're willing to offer.
But
and-
it's my understanding that the mailboxes at the roundabout are the cities, where the mailboxes with Summit Creek are part of their homeowners.
Are theirs.
association.
That's the way
So
I
they
believe.
have their own security there that we're not responsible for.
Well, I think
Just the
Jody's going to have
gates.
to double check that for us because she's under the understanding that it was
Were you under
needed.
the understanding their mailboxes were also? Or I thought it was just the gates and in
They,
easements.
they have that locked. To me,
Well-
that means it's not public.
We'll
It's-
check it.
it's an
We
HOA
don't need to spend any more
Okay,
time
okay,
tonight talking
okay.
about it.
And
I think it's
from
an
a snowplow
HOA
responsibility,
facility
we need to
that
plow the
they-
driveway
like
if
any
it's.
of their other
So for
buildings.
tonight, basically yes, I guess what you need to do is go home, look at this a little bit more. We're not going to peel this budget apart and go through it line by line, but that we've tried to answer as many questions as we can in these comments, so that as you're looking through some of these, you can see how those numbers came about. If it didn't seem obvious, you could call me or Chris or contact us with questions. But mostly what we need to do is decide how much, if any, are we willing or wanting to increase our taxes. And I'm talking about increase our
3%.
actual collection, real dollar collection. And we'll let the things fall how they may as to what that means the tax rate is. And then how much of our fund balance are we willing to reallocate and how much are we willing to spend? Because yes, we don't want to spend through all our savings. There are things I think that can be well justified because we don't want to be operating in the red all the time. But there are things that could, like Corbett's talking about putting in this auger system that is good enough investment in the future, a good enough cost savings going forward that it's worth spending savings now to recoup those things later. So just
I would also like to hear the thoughts that the Finance Committee has about this.
Yes.
You know, do they think that we're on a wild fishing trip? And
So,
that
well,
type of
and I
thing?
had a two-prong wish for them to be here. One is so we could hear from them. Thank you, Bob. And the other is for them to hear from you and us what our priorities are so that it
Yeah.
gives them better guidance moving forward for them to advise us because they kind of can see where we as a council are coming from. So, yes.
Well, the committee has met with every department and gone through these budgets. And as far as our vetting goes, we feel comfortable with what has taken place, the numbers that have been given, the reasons that the numbers have been given, that they are legitimate. It's not wild spending. It's very considerable spending that has, I mean, not a considerable amount of money, but it's
Well
been
considered.
well considered. That
Prudent.
it's prudent and needs to be for this city to move forward.
That's good.
And recognizing that these numbers are coming out of your pocket too. I mean, you know, they're.
Without a doubt.
On kind of on a side note of this, it'd be nice if somebody could kind of wordsmith these high-level objectives that we talked about, you know, just really high level, and then maybe we could share them with the citizen so they would have an understanding as to why we're doing some of the things that we're proposing to do. And I don't know who took good notes, but I didn't. 'Cause yeah.
I did.
Later does.
I'm
She's
hoping
great
that
at words.
I'm hoping that
If you could
I'm having surgery in the morning after I get off my little drug high in the next couple of days. Then maybe I'm going to be laid up, so this would be a good time for me to work on things like that.
And if
so,
you'd like, when you're done with it, I'll be willing to do
Okay.
some reviewing. 'Cause I'm
and
gonna be-
you may need to poke me because I'm
going to be driving a
need
bit.
it. Yes, you are. So just
So
so
I
that
can do that.
things get back to the top of my pile. But yeah, I think that would be very good for us to kind of summarize what priorities we've set and how we can take those and make them happen.
Well, and I think Jody taking notes too.
Yeah.
So if we've missed
Plus, we have the
something-
recording.
Any other input though from our finance committee before we leave? Because we really
Well, I'd just say,
appreciate. the work
Bob,
you've
when
done.
you go by Wendy's house, just honk your horn every time when you're in the snow plow. and
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the problem is that those trucks' horns sound like minis. Mini Coopers. I can hardly hear it from the inside the.
I think
The
the only,
finance committee wouldn't approve a bigger horn.
Craig can get you one that works.
the only other thing I would like to say is we appreciate the city council and every, I mean, all the city councils I need to be. And
No,
but I appreciate as a citizen, speaking as a citizen here, appreciate all that you do.
well, thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
We have a fantastic council. We really do. I've been very impressed with them and the love they have for our city and the work they put in and the decisions they make and their differences of opinion, because I think they represent our citizens well.
They do.
Well,
you
and I
know?
think it's not just opinions, it's perspectives. We all
Right,
come from
yes.
a different perspective, and
That's-
so that opinion then takes on a different. just
That's a better
different
word too.
Look.
The very variety of
The
perspectives.
diversity.
Yeah, thank you. Diversity of perspectives. Anyway, as far as that goes, unless there's anything else that important that you want to bring up, then we could adjourn.
When do we want to advertise for public hearing
For what?
for the budget?
We'll
When-
probably have to have another meeting.
Yeah,
just
when
to
does that
look
have,
at
when does that need to happen?
just-
If we do it in May, that'll give us plenty of time, but we were trying to get it done a little earlier this year.
What are you suggesting, Chris?
Why don't, you know what, look, we'll talk about it. Yeah, if you've got a suggestion now, we can take it. Otherwise, I'll put that on our next agenda.
Perfect, let's do that.
Okay. Yes.
Make sure that all, it's everybody's seen the letter.
Oh, Craig's just asking everybody to sign a letter.
Did we all sign it?
I haven't
We,
seen it.
this side did.
It's for the grant for that hopefully we can get to help with our CWPP.
So
see.
Oh, yeah.
am I the one who has it and hasn't been passing it or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
'Cause I
Hey,
said
Dave?
that-
Dave, while you have it, just forge my name.
Oh,
I'm
I
just
want to
kidding.
pour, I'd love to pour Paul's name.
Okay, do we need a formal motion?
Paul, I'll do it, and I can do it all with
I-
curly cues and
I wanna
everything.
pretend to turn the-
No, I don't think we need a motion. I think we can just
Okay.
adjourn, and I can thank you all so
And-
much for
And
coming.
thanks for dinner too. That was very
Thank you,
nice.
Jody, and thank
Good
you.
night,
and
everyone.
Good night,
Mike
Paul.
for being here.
We'll see ya.
Good night, Paul.